Welcome, everyone. I'm calling to order the joint meeting of the RWC Board of Directors and the Finance Committee for September 9th, 2025 to order. Deborah, could you please do roll call?
Absolutely. I'll be doing roll call for both the Finance Committee and the Board. For the Board members, Leanne Hamaji. I see Hamaji.
She's on Zoom somewhere.
Yes,
Right.
I see Hamaji over Zoom.
So it's bright and it's on.
Is everybody's mics off? Okay. Bentley?
Here.
Hurd is excused. Byram?
Here.
Hildreth?
Here.
Lair?
Here.
Selden?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
Yang?
Here.
Matheson?
Here.
And for Finance Committee, Ring?
Here.
Starr?
Here.
Castillo? Hines? Jennings?
Here.
Singh? Okay.
So today and tomorrow we'll be working on a budget session with the RWC Board and the Finance Committee and staff. We'll be discussing the proposed 2026 RWC RPM operation budget. The operation budget makes up the RWC portion of the residence coupon and covers the business of running Rossmore, as well as many aspects of resident life. We will be addressing the capital budget today. We will not be addressing the capital budget today. That'll take place later this year. With this operation budget, the Board, Finance Committee, and staff are looking to continue to provide high level of service and value to the residents while staying within the budget. I want to add that is the balancing act that we're in today's economy. Staff has worked on the proposed budget for many months, and this year's budget process was especially challenging as they adapted to the working with the framework of the new Workday and the NetSuite systems. On behalf of the full board, I want to thank all staff in their time and their efforts for getting the proposed budget out on time for this meeting, with a special thanks to accounting and the IT department. And a few points before we get started. We might have healthy debates at times on some items, and for those items that require a vote, we'll note those items and we'll conduct a straw vote at the end of the day. The final vote on the 2026 operation budget will be at the board meeting held on Thursday, September 25th. We'll have a few breaks during the session, including an hour break for lunch around noon. Please speak into your mics and turn it off after you finish speaking. And please raise your hand to speak, and I'll call you in that order. Please remember that, like all public meetings, we need to adhere to the agenda. And for interested residents, the proposed budget is available online. At this point, I'd like to proceed with the members' forum. Deborah, are there any speakers?
So there are no in-person speakers and there are no Zoom speakers. That concludes our member forum.
Okay. I'd like to turn it over to, I guess, Jeff and Todd Otterburn.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your week for a couple days here to join us as we go through the review of the RPM.
We're going to do the action item.
Yeah, we will. The RWC and RPM operating budget. Before we get started into the budgets, we do have one action item for you to consider, and that is acceptance of the 2024 audit. The audit committee met yesterday, so they have a recommendation for you to accept that, and there are members of the audit committee here that can answer questions and address their discussions. We do apologize that has been a late process, But as we have gone through many transitions this year, we are happy to report that that is a clean audit, and we are ready to proceed with that. So Dan, do you want to go over the meeting from yesterday and the recommendation from the audit committee?
Sure. We reviewed the statements. We had the CBIZ do a presentation going through the audit scope, the audit procedures they did, and we did, as Jeff said, receive an unqualified or a clean opinion, and we do recommend to the board that they accept the audit, the preliminary audit as sent to us by CBIZ.
And Todd, do you want to give a little overview of the audit?
Yeah, hey, good morning, board. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just first, so you know that we, obviously the audit, as we've talked about, you guys have all been aware that, we were delayed in getting this done due to the NetSuite implementation and a lot of other priorities. I would like to say that to start off that it's a very clean opinion with no issues on control or management. I think that you'll see the biggest change here for this year's audit that should pay particular attention to is just the closeout of the defined benefit plan, right? So there's a large adjustment in this year for that reduction in that asset. So you'll see a large loss on the RWC side when you get to the consolidateds at the very end. And if you just scroll down, Amanda, maybe to the very last pages on the financial results. So that is something that was very expected. That's not we were obviously waiting for CBIZ and the auditors to do the final calculation. So that number was never estimated or put into any of our internal financials, right, until the audit. And just so everyone knows that's online and listening that, we've been waiting for this audit. And the next steps will be to actually take the audit adjustments, including the one to the pension. We'll go back and import those and close out our old legacy system balances for 2024, and then we'll actually reload that new clean balance into NetSuite. So we have a fresh January start for NetSuite, and we've been waiting for these audit results to actually make those adjustments. So I just want to, I think the biggest thing other than that really jumps out is just that the benefit adjustment. That is not a cash loss. That is just a loss of income to remove it off our balance sheet where it sits in as adjustment to equity. So other than that, a couple questions. We are working, since we just got this in, on the audit adjustments. Those benefit adjustments too have some slight changes to where our internal financials are. So for example, you'll see on the RPM side, which is the very last page, where we actually break out RWC versus RPM. And keep going all the way down, Amanda, to the very last page. This very last page in the audit is actually where we can see what most people consider is RWC with the RPM piece to the right. So for example, if you look at the RPM results, you'll see we have an internal right now loss we're showing of like 480. We'll get into the forecast, but some of the things go all the way down to the P&L, which is the last page. You'll see here that those other income lines below the line, you'll see the 7443. That is the big adjustment due to the closeout of the defined benefit plan. And then if you look at on the RPM side, you'll see that $100,000, that's a classification issue. So if you were to look at our internal financials, there is some shifting of allocation. Also, there was an audit adjustment of $88,000 or $200,000, excuse me, for the non-union retirement plan, which is related to that defined pension plan too. So what you'll see here going forward is with these results, we'll then take these back through our internal financials and they'll be cleaned up. So other than that, direct questions I'm happy to take from the group. But the pension one is the biggest real, number we've been waiting for. Yes, Dwight.
So Todd, on RPM side, obviously we budgeted a deficit for 2024 because of the ERP implementation. Mm-hmm. So the audit report shows a net expenses over income of $379,000. I don't remember what we budgeted, but it would seem like that we budgeted even more of a deficit. that would result in some cash available to cover any expenses in 2025 or 2026 or 2025.
Yeah, I'd have to, let me pull up the budget from last year real quick on RPM.
And we could address this tomorrow, but I think it's important when it comes to looking at spending
Sure,
$130,000 on future
Yeah, yeah.
implementation costs.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Is there a motion for the audit?
I would like to move that the board approve the audit as presented.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Deborah, could we have a vote?
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes.
Bentley? Byram?
Yes?
Hildreth?
Yes.
Laird?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Yang?
Yes.
Ring?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Castile?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Jennings?
Yes.
Singh? It's unanimous.
Okay, so we will move on to the presentation of the RWC budget, and then we will address RPM budget tomorrow. Today, we will be going through kind of an overview to begin with of the consolidated version of the budget. We'll go over some of the items that you will see that pertain to all of the departments with relation to staffing and benefits and so forth. We'll try to make some notes there that you will then be able to apply to other sections. You will then hear from each of the department heads in relation to individual budgets as we go through tab by tab and kind of department by department. They will give an overview of their departments and then discuss any variances that are significant that you may see within the operating budget proposal. I tell you, this is my 15th budget presentation here with Rossmore. And I believe this is the first one that we are presenting a draft budget that actually has a year-over-year decrease. So a pretty significant milestone here. We are proposing a budget right now as in its draft form that has a $3.30 per man or per month year-over-year decrease. There will be some stuff that you will discuss later on in terms of proposals for new staffing and internal control audit that will impact that. We do have an update on the Comcast agreement that actually will improve that number a little bit as we go through. So just to start, I want to really start off by highlighting that Rossmore is a thriving community. Rossmore is a healthy, thriving community. One of the main initiatives this last year was that of the marketing task force led by Director Walker, and they really highlighted, what is the values and the vision for Rossmore and why this is such a special place. So that was extremely valuable work, and that has led to some of the initiatives that you will see here in the budget today. There are some reasons for the decrease. One, the staff has worked hard to review their budgets, review their forecasts to make sure they are in line with the service level that we are offering. But the board made two significant decisions in the last meeting, and one was to move the trust facility and property maintenance over to the capital fund, and that results in a significant savings. And the other one was to put off earthquake insurance, and that also it results in a significant savings. And there's good reason for that decision based on the reserve that is building in the capital fund. The budgets that you will review today for each department are really based on the current level of service. So they are baseline budgets. They are all based on the shared cost model and what we provide as individual service per department. So anything that is additional would be discussed as a proposed new program or service. The other thing to keep aware is last meeting of the board, they approved a number of fee adjustments. Those have been added into the budget already in terms of estimated revenue that those may generate. So those are already incorporated into the draft budget. The process moving forward would be that the committee today, or the board and finance committee today, will take some straw votes, make any recommendations for changes, give us any feedback that we need to go investigate sometimes. We will then come back to the finance committee, do another full review, make any of those adjustments that came to light today, and then they will make a recommendation to the board, and the board will consider approval at their September end of month meeting. There is one other adjustment in the report here today. It refers to the Consumer Price Index in the CPI-U. This is a common used indice that we use, especially when we do benchmarking for our cost of living adjustments with our staff. It refers to a 2.7%. That is the CPI-U for the national average. The Bay Area is, interestingly enough, only 1.5%. So please note that in the comparisons that you see on the budget versus the CPI. I did mention the trust facility property maintenance moving over. That is a discussion that will be ongoing through the committees here over this next month as they determine how that will be adjusted in the capital budget, so that'll be something to look forward to. Insurance continues to be a good news story over the crisis that we had in the 22 and 23 years as prices are starting to come down for the property. However, the overall insurance portfolio for the liability and other lines continues to grow, but overall you will see a fairly flat line, and that also is a tremendous benefit for the mutuals. We have budgeted some adjustments for utilities. Last year we were talking about a decrease in our utilities based on the anticipation of our solar project coming online out here in the parking lot. It did come online in June. It takes about 3 months for PG&E to catch up on the billing cycle, so we have not seen the benefit of that yet, but we are anticipating that in the budget proposal. The other utility, though, that we are experiencing dramatic changes in that Mark will address a little bit later is for the golf course. One of the major initiatives taken on by the mutuals was to change out their water-cooled air conditioners to air-cooled. That significantly decreases the runoff that we capture to irrigate the golf courses. So we are seeing higher utilization of East Bay mud water. So you will see a pretty significant increase there. Public safety, we are in our fourth year, entering our fourth year of a 5-year agreement with Securitas, and this is a year where their agreement could have gone up as high as 5%, and they came in at 2.5%. So tremendous partnership there with Securitas, and they are really holding the line for us. So a small increase there in their services. And then property taxes, you see a little bit of an increase, and that is in anticipation of our new pickleball facility, which we anticipate will get under construction here in the coming months and likely will be completed by the beginning of the second quarter into the first quarter. Comcast is in the third year of our agreement, and they have a ability to go up 4% based on the basic package for the Walnut Creek area, whatever that adjustment is. So we did budget at 4%. It turns out that they are not going up 4% this year. They did send notification. It just came in after we had already printed, literally an hour later. And they're going up, I believe, 98 cents overall, so a much smaller increase than what we had included in the package. Personnel cost, the board did approve a 2% increase, and then also the increase for the merit market pool. Those are incorporated into the draft budget. And then revenues, we have seen some pretty significant increases on the golf course with rounds played. The weather has been phenomenal, and the course is in wonderful shape, so we are seeing a lot of play. We also have some increases in rates that will influence anticipated revenue. So that is pretty much the overview, and then we can turn it over to Todd and Amanda to go through section 1 and a little bit more detail of the summaries of what you'll find in the budget. So Todd, Amanda?
Yeah, I just want to start, just to kind of orient everyone to, I'll turn this over to Amanda to go through this, but when you get to the overall summary report, just
Excuse me, Todd?
Yep. Yeah, Ted.
Nancy, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. You said 98 cents on the Comcast. Can you quantify that in dollars? So now we've got an increase of 190,000. What is it instead of that?
I'll have to get back to you on the
Oh,
overall
okay.
calculation.
But I should be able to multiply 98 cents by 66760. Get it?
I'll confirm the 98 cents too. That was just kind of off the top.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Todd. Continue there.
Yeah, no problem. So just scroll down to the big summary page, and we'll go back to those other ones. Keep going. Just want to keep going, just this one. All right. So I just want to orient yourself when we get this. We'll go back to the top of the book. Obviously, Ted mentioned this is the first year we've actually used NetSuite in conjunction with Workday Adaptive, our new planning and budgeting software. One of the things we're injecting into the culture, so compared to last year, this schedule has changed slightly because we're actually pulling in more current data. Last year, we pulled in only through June. This one, because it's real time in NetSuite, we're able to actually pull in, actuals through July. We're also implemented, really the first time this organization's really done kind of more of a detailed forecasting. Obviously, so instead of last year, we looked at just really, the June numbers and then the new budget. We actually started the discipline of forecasting. Obviously, as we go through this, we're going to continue to get better at that, and that has a lot to do with as we refine our budget seasonality by month and to actually kind of just instill that culture of forecasting into the organization. But that's a new change for this year. And then obviously it compares the variances on the far right compare the last year's approved budget to this year's draft budget. So I just want to kind of orient you to that and kind of some of the changes that we are using in our new systems. And I will say that the use of Workday is actually made, even though we've had a lot of challenges getting to this point, it's actually really, really enhanced our ability to produce clean data that ties out to our GL. And so it's a huge step forward. So let's go ahead and we can jump back up to the top. All right, do you want to jump in on this? Yeah, so I think just kind of tagging along with what Jeff had commented on, the big shift there, moving as we did through the board action last month, shifting the $750,000 from the trust facility. You'll see that is does not carry forward into the 2026 budget. As Jeff already mentioned, the cable we have in there at 238 will actually go down. to 98 cents. You could do some quick math on that, but it's going to be roughly less half of that, right? So you're going to go down to, say, 90.
So an additional $1.40 savings.
Yeah, exactly. $1.40 savings on the next version. So you'll see then our overall coupon, compared to where we were last year, is actually down $3.30, once again, outside that cable adjustment. So, and then if we scroll down from that into the actual, by department as we go through them today, obviously this lays it out, from each department in terms of the change from 25 budget to this year's budget, and we'll be able to go through those in detail when we get to the departments. So I'll take questions on the summary sheet, and then I think Amanda has some overall comments on terms of some of the big things in terms of, one other thing I will say is, with the change in NetSuite 2, we did change our chart of accounts to make one new encompassing chart of accounts that works through the entire community, including the mutuals. So there is some shifting in some of the detail in terms of account codes. We're in that new world, so just pay attention to the new account codes and the new descriptors going forward. But there will be some little bit of a shift in terms of some of those buckets if you're trying to match up past reports or past data. So just so you know, there's some change in there. And I will turn it over to you to talk to the big payroll variances or headcount changes.
Good morning, everyone.
Nancy?
Yeah, just on this high-level page, I spent quite a bit of time on this page reviewing it and asking myself what the story that it tells is. And I just thought before we start the meeting today, I wanted to say sort of like what I did to determine level of materiality for things and what's important about this and what is our real story. And because we're concerned about the coupon, but you can be too picky about that. So, for example, we have a lot of concern the coupon has gone up to whatever, $1,000 a month to $1,300. If we wanted a coupon to go down by $100 a month, that would mean $8 million in expense. If we wanted the coupon to go down by $10 a month, that would be $800,000, if I'm doing my math correctly. And so for every $10,000 that we spend, it amounts to 12 cents a month per the coupon. So it just, for me, because there's so much information here, I can hardly see the forest for the trees, that to get to that level of materiality and put my finger in the air and see what's important and what's not important. So again, for every 10,000, 12 cents. And is it worth it? And is it worth spending that money? So.
I appreciate that kind of high-level thinking. I also wanted to point out this is when we're talking about coupon, and this is really for the residents at home. We are talking today about the Rossmore Walnut Creek portion of the overall coupon. So we're talking about the $354 per man or per month, including cable. So nothing that we do today here impacts the mutual side of the house. Yet tomorrow we'll talk about the RPM portion, which does bleed into that a little bit in terms of the management agreement and so forth. But today we're just focusing on the RPM. So only that 350 plus per man or per month portion of the coupon dealing with Rossmore Walnut Creek services and programs.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that I also did a calculation just to make sure I saw the big picture. For $350 a month, I get swimming pools, recreation, safety, cable TV. For another $950 a month or whatever, $1,000, I get landscaping, trash, water, insurance, maintenance, etc. So to view it from a customer perspective, what are you getting for this $350? In my perspective, it's a lot, and it's really worth the money. But
Okay, I'll talk briefly about our budgeting process for salaries and benefits, because that is by far our largest expense lines. So each year we take the current staffing level and project the increase based on actual positions available. And for the benefit side, we do take into consideration what our current staffing has chosen for benefits and apply the increases and or sometimes decreases, like you'll see in vision expense, to what is selected. We make some assumptions for our open positions, and across the board, it is kind of difficult to compare year over year because of several factors that you'll consider. First of all is the salary increases are based upon what someone is currently, their current rate, and then projecting that. So if someone were to have received a part of the merit market pool in the prior year, which lives and is budgeted in the unallocated department, if it's then allocated to that department, you'll see higher increases year over year to budget, but we are taking the actuals and projecting upon that. There has been turnover, so if someone comes into a position at a different rate than their predecessor, that plays into it as well. And there are going to be changes in union benefits year over year. There's also take into consideration that the pension is no longer, so more people are contributing to their 401ks. What else did I want to talk about? I believe those are the high-level points. I certainly can answer any questions about the process for benefits and wages.
Dan, you have a question?
Yeah, Amanda, approximately how many open positions are there right now that you are assuming we're going to fill next year?
There were very few as of when I was going through the budget. A handful, maybe Arnold knows a closer number off the top of his head, but it was I would say 5 to 6 open positions.
Okay, thank you.
Adrian?
Yeah, I remember from last year that I had the same question or the same concern, and I see it's being repeated this year. On the benefits, like particularly medical benefits, they are charged to each department based on the individuals who are actually in that department and their medical costs. And there's 2 problems with this. First of all, in a department that's fairly small, it tells you more about the employees than people should know. And second, and most important for this committee or for this meeting, it means that in some cases, a budget in a department has gone up because the people are sicker, okay? Very simply. And in other cases, they've got a bunch of healthy people, and so their budget is dropped. And that's not appropriate. We should be putting a number in the budget based on the average cost for medical care per employee. That's what should show up in the budget, not this variable number. And I realize we can't change it now, but I'd love to see that next year when I show up here, if I can remember it, which is a question, that we arrange it that way. Thank you.
Castile?
So I'm not familiar completely with the healthcare system that you have and how self-insured it is versus just a standard plan. So it may also be true that it doesn't have anything to do with how sick someone is, but whether or not they actually participate in our healthcare costs, because they may have a spouse that they're under theirs instead. So I'm wondering if when you're computing the healthcare costs, and does it really go down to person and whether or not someone's participating and what the actual costs are to that department, and are we somewhat self-insured that it makes a difference on how healthy someone is?
So we do budget based on individual and what they've selected. So If someone has a full family, we budget based on that, if that's what their current election is. Of course, each calendar year, there's open enrollment and people can choose different things, but we do have employees who do participate in our plan and we have employees who don't. So we do take that into consideration, and then for our open positions, we do budget as if they have full family, to be conservative. Arnold can speak kind of more about the plans as a whole and how those rates are generated and increases are generated each year.
Yes, definitely. Good morning, board. Good morning, members of the Finance Committee. My name is Arnold Sevillano. I'm the head of the HR department. Really quick with what Amanda was stating right now. For benefits, it depends on eligibility for employees. We do provide benefits for all full-time employees and part-time employees, regular part-time employees. But also depends, employees may not want to enroll in benefits at the moment due to their spouse being in a different plan at their current, with their current employer, so they can opt out from benefits. We do have also qualifying events. Let's say the spouse of that employee that is working for us no longer have benefits at their current employer. So this then becomes a qualifying event where the employee can decide to enroll in our benefits now. And that's part of the contract that we have, or the law as well. We do have two different plans on benefits. We have the high deductible plan, and we also have the regular HMO plan, which it's more costly, but at the same time, the employee saves more there, and the employer saves as well, some money there.
So we do have a few rate plans available. All of the plans are the same for every employee, non-represented employee, regardless of how much they have utilized the plan. So the overall plan gets rated, not individual.
Harding?
Yeah, so I had two follow-up questions on this. In terms of medical costs, the best way to reduce them is to pool a larger amount of data, have a larger insurance pool. So are we maximizing our pooling kind of capacity? That's the first question. And the second one, in terms of what Kim was asking, if one of the spouses has outside insurance, most organizations provide an incentive then not to take insurance, so that actually there's a net savings in terms of, the differential. So do we have that kind of rewarding system?
Do not have that kind of incentive, like telling the employee, why don't you go with, your spouse's insurance? It is optional, but I think it can happen.
So under our current plan, we don't have like a cafeteria plan where if you don't use it, it comes to you in terms of incentive or bonus. It's either you use it for these selected benefits, or you don't because you have a spouse or you have coverage somewhere else.
And the percentage is driven by utilization on the benefits. We have our broker, which is Willis Towers Watson, that negotiates our rates. They go, deal with Kaiser in this instance, and they try to get us the best rates every year. And they were actually aiming for us to be at a double-digit increases for 2026, but they actually came back with single digits, which was a 4.31 increase on medical benefits. And utilization, again, may drive, if the more employees are visiting the doctor, they bring their families, that also affects the percentage increase year after year.
Adrian, did you?
Okay, I didn't want to get into a deep dive on the nature of the benefits. All I was trying to point out was that at the moment, the way the budget is put together, the choices that the individual employees have made in that department show up in the budget for that department, as opposed to a sort of average overall. And so if you look in detail on some of the budgets, some of the departments, you'll see that their increase in medical benefits is 12%. In other cases, it's 4%, and that's not right. I mean, it is correct, that's what's actually happened there, but the point for us as a budgeting organization is it should be the average cost of medical care for the people. That's the number that should be represented in the budget for a department, so that we're not somehow misjudging that this department has an excessive increase and this one is somehow saving money. Okay, that was my only point. It was just about a budgeting technicality.
Nancy?
I really have to ask that something be done with that light, especially if managers are going to be standing there presenting, because I can't even look. I should have worn a sun hat. I mean, if we got to change the light or move the podium to a place, because it's really untenable. I have to look this way. Move the podium and the light. The light's a real problem. What's the value of that?
All right, so the problem is if we move the lights, no one's going to be able to see this on TV. It's there because we're broadcasting for Zoom and for Rossmore TV. So we could move it, but unfortunately that means TV's not going to see the folks on the podium or they're not going to see you guys.
You got to come over here and see what it's like. It's really bad.
It's just as bad because that light is in my eyes too. So it's Ted, it's the board's decision, but you are going to impact TV if we move the lights.
Well, to move the podium to a different spot and leave the lights the way they are, and still get the person on the podium on the camera, that's you guys.
Okay, why don't we let them kind of discuss that technically, and we'll move on, but they'll kind of see what options they have technically, and we'll.
Okay.
Okay, I think, Amanda, was there anything further you wanted to discuss that may be common themes that they'll see?
No, I think that's the main ones that will be common throughout each department.
All right, so if there's other questions about the consolidated presentation, otherwise we would move on to our presentations by department. And we would start with Deborah and Executive Services. Are we ready to move on to the department? Okay. So Deborah, you are up with Executive Services.
All right. Hi, Deborah Rose, Executive Services and Chief Executive Office. My presentation today will cover our small department of 4 individuals. There is the CEO, myself, an administrative assistant, and the mail clerk. So moving on to my narrative for the budget. Overtime wages will keep the same for last year, for this year. It's $400. Staff training, I did increase by $2,100 so that I can take the CACM course, so that I can be more up to date with issues both for the RPM and RWC side. And that carries over to the dues and membership as well, an increase of $370 for those membership dues for CACM. Subscription and books stay the same. Employee uniforms, I increased by $50. This is a requirement for the mail clerk to have Rossmore logo shirts. Travel and meal allowance, there was a variance from last year. You may recall a request for the trip to Laguna Woods. That was removed from this section, and just the $6,000 is being requested. The copy and printing services really does focus on the election inspection and election-related materials, and so I'm asking $25,500, which was basically the same as last year. Administrative supplies is the same. Business promotion, I reduced that. I refined it by a few $1,000s, so we're down from $23,000 to $19,540. And the telephone line item is the same as last year's, $480. Any questions? No? Okay.
So just to go over format-wise, for each department, you see a kind of a cover sheet that talks about the general duties of the department as well as head count. It talks about the budgeted versus actual for 2025 and then the projected for 26. Then you go into the detail and then you find the narrative that matches the accounts with the detail on the previous page. So we'll continue on if there's not
If I could interrupt for just a second. Nancy and Cheryl, is that better now? Or are you still having issues? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ann, for pointing it towards me.
Quite frankly,
Okay, we'll continue to work on that. Yes.
So my question is this. I noticed that you cut the travel and meal allowance by almost half, largely probably because it wasn't spent. But I just want to make sure that you feel that there is enough in this budget for Rossmore to be adequately represented at things like insurance meetings and things that are important for Rossmore.
Last year, we looked at an opportunity to take a few of the board members down south to see our sister communities and meet with them and discuss areas of commonality. That never materialized. There was some angst over that line item. And since we didn't spend that, we didn't rebudget that portion. It still contains resources to do the travel and representation that we need to do.
Good. I mean, we've heard some really good things from Gallagher about Rossmore being represented at these insurance conferences, and I think that there's a real benefit to having you there.
And we'll continue to do that. Okay, next we have Human Resources. Arnold.
Good morning, once again. My name is Arnold Sevillano. Again, I'm the head of HR. We are a team of 4, myself. Thanks, Jeff. Perfect, thank you. I do have also an HR generalist 2, an HR generalist 1, and a HR coordinator. The Human Resources Department plays a critical role in supporting both leadership and administrative functions of the organization. HR needs to make sure that we are complying with all the laws. We're following the local laws, federal laws, and that's our main role here. For the HR budget for 2026 is designed to balance operational needs with fiscal responsibilities. Some line items slightly increase due to inflation or compliance needs. Others are reduced through efficiencies, and many remain flat to reflect prudent management. For example, line item 70217 and their employee expenses, recruitment fees, we were budgeted at $50,000. We're planning to be at $45,000 for 2026. That it's a reduction of $5,000. For subscriptions and books, we budgeted $10,000 for this year. We are requesting an increase on $2,500, and that's due to increases in prices for the subscriptions year after year. Legal services as well, we budgeted $15,000, and we are asking to increase another $15,000 for 2026. As you can see, the spends for 2024 was $80,000, and year to date, we are at $21,000 already. And this is due to unpredictable situations that happen. We can't control that, and we have to make sure that we are doing everything properly and legal, and that's why we need to rely on our consultants for this specific line item. line item 74035 with postage and delivery, we are reducing the budget by $200, and that's due to sending some information electronically. But still, we need to send some documents where we need signatures from the recipients. And then, as you can see, some of the other line items, they are remaining flat. So we're pretty consistent there for 2026. Yes.
Just a couple questions that weren't addressed in the write-up. The first is there is a reduction from forecast in the salary and wages. And my second question is we've got 58,000 in staff support, and I just want to ask, in your view as the head of personnel, is that adequate? We have so many fabulous employees here working so hard, understanding our needs, and I just, if you had your druthers, or you could say, is that as much as you need to do your job?
For staff support, year after year, that number is being very generous for us, but we can always, do more for our employees, which, they do deserve it. They do great here for the community, and they're very, happy with what we do for them, not just the recognitions, the 3 events that we do in a year.
And the salary increase.
Your other question related to is salaries. We have had some changes in the staffing within human resources to keep 2 out of the 4 positions. So that just represents where the current new employees are at compared to the ones that retired.
Yes. Cheryl?
I had a similar question on the.
Excuse me, Cheryl, could you speak into the microphone, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I had a similar question on item 70220, because in the write-up, you note that there's a 25% increase in food costs, and yet the budget doesn't increase at all. So I want to echo Nancy's concern that we don't have enough in that budget.
Yes, we do partner with our caterers every year. I have my HR coordinator. She works with them when it comes to the prices, even though prices go up, the food costs go up every year. We try to work with them. So we have kind of like a relationship with them already for the past few years that we've been doing all these events, and they're pretty consistent with our numbers as well.
This is certainly an item we can come back and discuss with some more options. We can discuss this with the comp committee as well. We're trying a few new initiatives where we're trying to get recognition for our employees that do outstanding service. So there's always opportunities, but we can certainly talk about that with the comp committee in the coming weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Ted, could I make a request? I love being in the spotlight. Obviously, Nancy does not. But is there a way to move the podium a little bit to the left? Because, it is just blinding.
Yeah.
Well, the other direction. The other direction.
Oh, to the right. Oh.
My left.
Yeah.
If that works for TV, that's awesome.
Okay, I'm not going to move to the podium, but I'm going to pinch hit for public safety and our public safety director, Tom Cashon, for the next, if we're ready to move on. Public safety is a department of one, yet they oversee our largest contract, and that is with Securitas in providing public safety, our EMT programs, our patrol, and operation of the gate. They also coordinate a great deal of our services in public safety and emergency preparedness planning with outside agencies. The budget that is being presented, as I mentioned earlier, does include the increase per contract with Securitas at 2.5%. We do have some increases in revenue based on what the board approved at the last meeting. Within the budget itself, there is very little change. We took supplies down slightly, increased equipment repair maintenance. That is really to do with a lot of the radios and equipment that they use at the front gate based on overall trends that we have seen year over year. But other than that, the budget is fairly flat from last year at a 2.5% change. If there's any questions for security, yes.
Dennis?
David. Yeah, thanks. So the contract is $2.3 million. Is there any way you could tell me what's the equivalent head count on average that they supply to us over the whole year?
We can definitely provide you with the head count that needs to provide within the terms of the agreement. I don't have that at my fingertips, but we can provide that. It's pretty specific on the number of officers, the patrol, the EMTs, the stair track program, the public safety office coverage. So I can give you some more detail.
Okay, that'd be great, thanks.
Yep.
I have a question.
Janet?
Under emergency preparedness and safety and security supplies, I've noticed those are repeated in other departments as well. And I don't know if we get much of a breakdown about what that is and where these emergency supplies are. I'm very curious about the whole emergency preparedness, and maybe I need to read a booklet somewhere.
So you will see a lot of commonality in the account codes that we use from department to department. Sometimes there's no budget in there, but you'll still see the different breakdown of supplies that can be used. For a description of what is included in the supplies, emergency preparedness, safety, security, there's the detail following the budget for public safety, and then that would be also the same for each department where they utilize those. For this one, it really has to do with emergency preparedness organization, community emergency response team, CERT, everything such as propane tanks for the generator at the front gate. So there's a lot of individual items that go into our overall emergency preparedness, a lot of publications and so forth. And then safety security is everything from our EMT medical supplies, AED pads for our various clubhouses, and other basic safety equipment that's provided. But each department should have a write-up when they utilize those various line items. But you'll see commonality throughout in terms of our terminology.
So some of these items are duplicated at the swimming pool, at the security offices, I don't know, just in different parts of Rossmore?
So we don't budget twice for them.
Okay.
It depends on who's responsible for that area. So if aquatics is responsible for maintaining the first aid kits, then that would be found in their budget. If the public safety is responsible for the AEDs, then even if it's at the pool, it would be in that budget. So it just depends on area of responsibility, but we don't double count the.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Leanne.
For account 74022, public safety contract, it talks about non-contracted costs for personnel at large recreation events July 4th. So those aren't Securitas. So what other contractors would we be employing for these large events?
So we have 10,000 in there. That actually is with Securitas. So if we have a special event or an event where it requires additional coverage other than what is included in the baseline, we can contract with Securitas to provide some additional officers, some additional staff to respond or to coordinate traffic control and other things. That's what that additional 10,000 is for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on? The next one we have is bus transportation. And am I doing that or are you doing it?
I can do the intro and
Okay.
you can answer questions. How about that? Great. So for bus transportation, the current level of service includes our hourly downtown service. We have dial-a-bus and on-demand bus service that allows residents to schedule hours, and they would call an hour ahead of time in order to take them on rides to places like within Rossmore, to medical centers, the shopping center in Walnut Creek. So it's everything within our service area. We also still have our subsidized ride program through GoGo, and that partner works with Uber and Lyft for rides outside of the transportation department's service window. And we do provide a subsidy of $10 per one-way trip with a maximum of $20 per day. And the cost of this service is partially subsidized by the Measure J grant. You'll see that line item has increased the request for next year. Our current staffing level is at 9.6. And there was a 0.6 dispatcher who retired earlier this year. And we actually use our bus drivers for dispatch service, so we're proposing that 0.6 reduction for 2026, and then rotate bus drivers in, which actually is very helpful for them to understand the traffic pattern and the scheduling for them to successfully execute their job. Moving into the different line items, the two changes, we're going to talk about safety and security supplies, Janet. So what we ended up doing, because with NetSuite, when the lists of accounts were present, it gave us the ability to break up some of these really large line items so we could more appropriately account for the different expenditures. And so we moved $9,000 from a supply line item, which was 72,067, to 72215. So those are safety and security supplies. And for those, what it looks like for transportation, we have paratransit securement devices that we need. Any of the communication aids that we need for the bus drivers to dispatch, and iPads are included in that. Those are included in here, different ergonomic aids and first aid kits. Under professional services, which is 74029, you'll see a $45,000 increase. So the requested funds are based on the actual use of the rideshare the subsidized ride program. So this year we're projecting $55,000 in reimbursements. And we also included $30,000 for an on-demand software for the subscription fees for that. And what we're looking to do is to get a subscription service where we can run our dispatch to better locate and better automate a little bit, and maybe have online type of requests that are more automated for our residents to make that service more convenient. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. I have a question. So at $1.1 million, this is an extremely expensive program, and I know there have been considerations given to modifying and enhancing the transportation service. Does this budget provide for flexing on those issues to be able for us to transition into 2010 rather than being in 1980?
This does. So what we're trying to move towards, especially with the increase in professional services line, it accounts for resources to do weekend service with Uber and Lyft. We are negotiating that currently. It also provides, as Ann mentioned, the resources for an on-demand software solution. We will also be working with CCTA on grants to try and get smaller equipment, but that's something we'll be addressing in the capital budget as well, and looking at being a more demand response type system, more of a Uber-Lyft system. So there's a lot in the works. It moves very slowly, I understand that, but we're trying to budget so that we can continue to transition within the next year.
So one follow-up on that. So we've got weekend service in other professional services, and we also have it in personnel. So I would expect to see a reduction in headcount.
So there is a 0.6 reduction right now, And then last year, we actually took it down another position. So the overall department has shrunk in consideration of that over a 2-year period, because we haven't run weekend service consistently for a very long time. So it does reflect the reduction in weekend service over the last 2 years.
Dan?
Yeah, following up with Dwight, this is an expensive budget. Do we know how many rides we provide? Do we know how many miles we travel, so we can figure out where we stand with what our cost is versus other options out there? Is that something we're looking into?
We do have our overall ridership numbers, and it's been pretty consistent. Do you have that?
I have it for last year. It was a little over 39,000.
I believe 39,000 one-way trips. At its peak, it was about 110,000, but service is dramatically different than it was many years ago. The number of miles driven and cost per ride, we could provide that data as well.
So at 39,000, roughly $3 each trip to get to $1.2 million, around that.
$29 a trip.
Yeah, $29 a trip. That sounds very expensive.
Transit is not an inexpensive proposition to operate. For public transit, for private transit, it is a very expensive. It is also one where the more convenient you make it, the more expensive it is, but you increase ridership. So where is the balance? Where are you willing to kind of find the sweet spot within that? For the people that utilize the transit, it is a lifeline. They absolutely need the service because they've given up driving, or they no longer drive. So for many, even though it is an expense and it may not be the most convenient option, if it is your only option, it is a lifeline. So it's a very delicate balance into where the level of service that is provided within Rossmore for bus transportation should be.
Janet?
Has anyone ever looked into contracting it out to like how we've contracted out to Securitas? I don't know if there are such companies that would run it like part of County Connect, or just curious if there's other contractors.
There are, and many cities and public agencies almost exclusively use contracted services. It certainly is an option, but based on our size, it is a pretty comparable to more expensive option in general, as you're still pulling from the same resource of Class B drivers with a passenger endorsement. Our wages are very comparable, so overall, you're probably not going to see a significant per ridership savings.
Jeff, I know that the city of San Francisco is having some trouble getting loans for all their transportation stuff. Is that grant tied to the state, and is it tied to that package that's going to be coming down? I mean, is it in danger of getting that grant taken away?
The only grant funding that we currently receive is from the county, and that is through the Measure J sales tax measure. A portion of the revenue that the county and CCTA generates goes towards senior disabled transit provided by non-public entities. So we apply under that. It's a small amount, it's a fraction of the overall resources. So we have funding from the current year. They do a fiscal year, so we have funding through July of 27 secured already. And that's the 115,000 that we budget.
Thank you. Adrian?
Okay. I have some real concerns about this. It is a huge amount of money. It's $170 per house per year. I have a personal story about it. I'd like a refund, please. I don't use it generally. But this time, at one point, about 3 months ago, I had an appointment with Todd up at MOD. My wife had taken the car, gone off someplace, and so I thought, oh, great, I will use this. And so I called, and then we arranged a ride, and I said, okay, and you're picking me up at my door. And they said, no, we pick you up at the entry. I hadn't walked that far. At that particular time, my hip was completely screwed up. I cannot walk that far, so I couldn't use it. So here I am at the instant where this is the most important, this is a reason I'm paying this $170, and I can't use it. It doesn't work for me. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, my goodness, why are we spending this kind of money if this is a service that people who can't drive can't use? And so I know in the planning committee we're looking at this. I know we're investigating it. But if we don't have a better solution next year, by the time we come to this, we should not be spending this $1.2 million. This is a waste. It's not a waste of money, but we have a lot of people here, I know, who are unhappy with it, who find it doesn't solve their problems. And at the price we're paying, we should be doing a better, somehow meeting those needs more efficiently and more effectively. So no action this time, but we do need something by next year.
This is one of those services that, as I was mentioning, the more convenient you make it, the more responsive you make it, the more it costs. To go into an entry, to go to a door, much more expensive than to pick up at the curbside. Different equipment, when you have our current buses to get in and out of some of those entries, you add 10 minutes to the ride. That slows everything down. We do have two different types of service. One where we do go into entries for paratransit, or if you need the wheelchair lift, where we will pick you up closer to your door. But overall, we try and pick up at the curbside so that we could be more efficient, so that we're not going into actual entries and having to back up and then have other incidents. If we can go to a smaller equipment, then we may be able to go door to door because we can get it in and out much quicker. So there's a number of things that we're looking at, but overall it is designed how it's designed based on a number of factors, but one is really where is that cost balance of convenient service, door to door service, more expensive to operate. But yet it is a more convenient service. Obviously, if you can pull up a ride on your app and it shows up in 20 minutes like an Uber, great, but there is a cost to that. So it is one of those things where we definitely need to continue to work with our partnering agencies, work with the planning committee, finance committee, and bring a solution in 26.
Susan.
Thank you. Just in terms of the on-demand software, the subscription fees for $30,000, are we currently using that service, or is that a new service that we would implement this year?
That would be a new service.
And could we just learn a little bit more about how that service was selected?
So it hasn't been finalized. We are going through a pretty extensive process to select a software overall package.
Thank you.
See.
I just wanted to echo Adrian's sentiments to some extent, but also this issue goes together with our parking issues that we have. And we definitely have parking issues. I can't say how many times I show up at an event and I can't find parking, and the Creekside lot is full, and even at Hillside, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big problem. And, as we're looking at our capital budget in the long term and what we do, that this transportation issue and the parking issue are kind of one and the same thing. If I could dream about a perfect world that I don't have to think about costs, I wouldn't drive if every 7 minutes there was a Waymo or something like that coming down Ptarmigan Drive, I might do that. So that we have to kind of combine those visions as part of our overall becoming a premier community, where we put our capital dollars, and I just want to lobby for that being an essential issue.
Any other questions, comments about bus transportation? Okay, next up we have counseling services.
Counseling. So, counseling services. So you're all going to be getting a deep dive on that in a couple of months at the board meeting. But just let me give you an overview of the services, particularly for those of you that are new around the table this year. So they have a really lean team. There are 4 staff, 3 of them are actual licensed counselors. And in addition to those therapeutic sessions, they also, like probably one of the highest volumes of contacts and service to the community are with referrals for information. They work with our residents a lot to assist in connecting them with in-home care agencies. They do partnerships with the Companion Club, with Rossmore Fund, with some of the services they provide. And a lot of like the highest kind of request for assistance is with caregivers. So that's a pretty prime service that they deliver. They also have a number of different support groups, and they had an increase in those this year, and they're finding it's a very effective way in order to connect with the community and connect with people to share support. And this includes bereavement support, transitions for newcomers, and also, again, caregivers. It's one of the highest areas of need here. In addition to those programs, they coordinate a number of different special events, including their information fairs. They do a health fair, and they do this Optimum Wellness lecture series. And so again, the staffing here, which has been constant for a number of years, is the counseling manager, and Penny Reed is here today. She's hiding, but she does a fabulous job with this group. The 2 licensed clinicians and our administrative coordinator. Within the budget itself, I figured I'd kick off these programs with a good change to a reduction in one of the line items here. And so the events that counseling supports, some of them are ticketed events. And what they found is that they're finding people that are coming in and they're reducing their fees for lectures as presenters or waiving them altogether. So they've proposed a rather significant reduction on that line item from $8,000 to $5,000 for this year. All the other line items are the same, and I'm happy to answer any questions about this department.
Janet?
I would love to hear more about assisting the mutuals. Is that utilized, and is it successful? This is the first I've heard of it. And boy, when I was president of my mutual, I would have sent some people there if I'd known about it.
So for those of you that don't know, this is Penny Reed, our counseling manager.
Hey, Penny.
Hi there. Hey, I'm happy to answer that. So yeah, we actually do a lot of that work. Mutual directors and presidents will contact us with residents and neighbors they have concerns about. So we will, ideally, they'll kind of give us the story, and we'll reach out to that resident and introduce ourselves. If we're really lucky, they'll let us in the door, and we'll do a home visit and kind of make an assessment of everything going on for them, and then refer them to appropriate resources. If we're very, very lucky, they'll let us get in touch with their adult children or other family members, and we can kind of connect there and just make sure whatever the concern was about, that we get people involved, right? Because our services are short-term, so we don't have the staffing to do long-term case management, so our job is to get in, get them connected with what they need, and then kind of get out.
What about, like, if there's a dispute about something to do with the property, right? A fence or a dog or, something like that, something not that you're worried about the neighbor's health, but other things.
I think you're talking about mediation services. Yeah. So we do provide mediation services, but very simple ones. And what we usually are working with are noise complaints. And seeing if we can get the two neighbors together to get the communication. What is the noise? Why is it happening? What are the compromises here? Property lines and things like that, we wouldn't get involved in. That would be strictly mutual. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Ted, just a follow-up. So when I was president of Mutual, Penny came to the President's Forum and did a group therapy session. And it was outstanding. So if you haven't seen it, Penny, you've got it in your files. It's still good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wondered, what's the number of sessions, or what's your metric here per year that you do? How many residents do we serve?
You know, I've actually, do you have that? I have that. I have that at my seat. If you give me a moment, I'll run back.
Okay, thanks.
I could tell you last year's numbers. There were over 1,000 therapeutic sessions last year. For group sessions, they did 605, and they added some group sessions, so that's trending higher this year. For information and referrals, 16,456. So that's how many contacts they had in referring and connecting residents to service. And for the attendance at events for last year, to go scratch your numbers, it's 1,249. Yeah. So this is what we had from last year.
Yeah.
So there was brought up about helping out mutuals. You also get a lot of requests from members when they observe something also, and you react to those, don't you?
Oh, sure. Residents coming in, we call it neighbor concern. So they'll come in and say, you know, their downstairs neighbor, you know, they live alone. They've been noticing maybe some memory stuff, or you know, worst case scenario, it's hoarding, and I hate to bring that up because I know that's a whole nest of other questions. But those are also issues in which we're called in, oftentimes with hoarding cases or worst case scenarios, and they're very, very difficult to affect. And again, I can dive into that more in January when I do the deep dive. But typically if, neighbors will come in and just say, I'm worried about this person. And again, same thing. We try to hopefully connect with the person, maybe get a home visit if they let us come. I mean, the main thing is our services are voluntary. We can't mandate that anyone work with us. At that point, if they refuse and we're still worried, then we up the concern to the county.
Thank you. No more questions for Penny?
Okay, we will move on to accounting, insurance, and IT. Dun, 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 dun.
Super exciting. So a couple opening comments. Everyone knows that obviously accounting over the last several years, including my tenure here, has been, you know, going through turnover and trying to replace key staff. At the same time, we've been implementing all this new ERP system and NetSuite and everything else. So the good news is if you were to, and a couple other things I want to say as we're going to go through accounting and IT regarding headcount. So just so everyone knows, when we talk headcounts, we're also talking, in this sense, full-time equivalent, or FTEs. If you've seen that comment throughout some of these decks, that means a full-time equivalent position that is working 2,080 hours, right? So you can have, you know, two bodies that are part-time that make up one full FTE. So the good news with accounting and IT, there's been one shift, but in terms of total body counts and actual head count, we had 18 people budgeted in accounting, and we had 5 people in IT. We have shifted. We had an open position with one of our departures as assistant controller. We have actually moved that position over. We realized that with the complexities of NetSuite, we needed Sherry to have some help, and so we actually moved that. I gave up that position, so to speak, and from an accounting standpoint, and we moved it over into a system analyst system engineer role that has NetSuite. So that's going to really facilitate Sherry and some of the underlying infrastructure issues, managing NetSuite, report writing out of NetSuite. So it's a much more strategic shift for us. So now I have 17 in accounting and 6 in IT, just so you kind of understand, because we are one of the departments for everyone in the community and everyone here that are very much allocated between RPM and RWC, right? So we have our definite foot in both camps, right? So kind of understand that. So total head count's the same in actual terms of bodies, but we did move one and shift one strategically into Eric's department under IT because it better aligns with what we're doing now with these new tools. I would say the good news is just scroll down to the actual budget piece.
Hang on a second.
Yep, go back up.
Can you go back to that, please? I'm confused. You're saying there's 17 people total?
In accounting? Okay,
chose,
I'm talking.
Chose 12.
Hold on. I'm talking total across my department. We're split between RPM and RWC. So this piece here shows just the allocation to RWC.
Right, but even if you do the math, it doesn't add up to it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 8 plus 6 equals 14.
Right. Okay.
15, because there's 2 insurance coordinators, 2 financial.
No,
There are some positions that aren't listed here that are exclusively for RPM. The only ones that are either split or associated with. So there are positions not listed here if they are 100% in RPM.
Yeah, and I just, for future, I talked to Todd about this at the beginning of the meeting, and this kind of allocation thing, I understand why you need to do it for cost accounting, but I would really like to just know how many people we have in each department so there can add a column that shows here's the people, then there's the allocation. So I know, because I really don't care if it goes to RWC or RPM. I just want to know how many people does Todd have working for him. So if we can make that really easy, so I'm not sitting here doing math and dividing by 0.65 and all of that, I would like to request that the schedules be amended so that we can see that clearly in all cases where we're allocating the FTE.
Okay, so Nancy, we talked about that. I think it gets into what we've done historically versus how do we look at total employees and trying across the enterprise, across all departments, shifting and how we maybe do some of the reporting. And that might be a discussion for the Finance Committee and to take it up also with the board to obviously handle some of the allocation pieces. But I'll tell you, tomorrow when you add this piece with the RPM piece, you'll actually come to 22.5 people. And there's a half a person I share with you, Arun, now on Casey. So the numbers do add up, I promise. You don't want my numbers not to add up. So, and you'll see some of the notes in terms of how the salary allocations are. So go ahead and scroll down to the budget now. So this really is, I think, a good story here. We have gone through, like I said, a lot of transition. This year's been a lot of transition. Going live with NetSuite's been a lot of transition, right? We're kind of coming into I would say, a steady state, which we have not been in finance and IT for a long time. And that's reflective here. You'll see in all the changes on this budget. We have just filled this last month, our last open position. I've had turnover with the FP&A role. Jason Lopez has now joined my team, so he is now my last kind of key person, and I have a very, very stable staff. If you look at the 3 senior accounts on the mutual side and the 1 dedicated to RWC with Kat, we have 4 good, solid senior accountants now to support Amanda. And so we're actually in a really good place, and we've just been going through a lot of upheaval for, I think, probably the sitting board. So as long as you know, accounting's kind of been going through a lot of upheaval and transitions. So we're in a good place now. You'll see, obviously, from the top of our budget, we did have temporary help and overtime that we're weaning ourselves away from. One other thing just to also speak to, if you looked at the summary, and it's kind of highlighted here a little bit, when we actually have and when we get to general services, just so everyone knows, you'll see the merit market pool amount that's down in general services. Well, those dollars have been applied against the current departments and current salary. So when you see an increase going from up to 7.7%, it's not that we're giving ourselves necessarily all raises over the 2% approved rate, but it's actually the application of those merit market dollars across every department where they existed. They will take the 25 run rates, up. So you'll see zero spending in the merit market pool, right? So that's why if you look at the total consolidated level, the very summary page, you'll see why that salary is 1.7% increase, right? Budget to budget, because that line includes that number. So I just want to let that people know that. So when they're driving into these numbers, keep in mind that total market pool is spread out over different individuals and different departments. So really, we're kind of heading into a steady state here. There's a couple additions here, the staff training. I think it's time now that Amanda and I both can get our CACM certification. I think it is important, so we have those dollars in here. And we also have, that I have a solid team now. I do have some dollars in here to do some planning and team building opportunities with them, but not to any kind of excessive amount. So you'll actually see that overall, we see a reduction in my budget for accounting for next year. And if you were to then, so any questions on this one? I kind of want to do it in both with, yeah, go ahead.
Dan and then Dwight.
So the internal control audit, that is not, was that budgeted for 25 or not budgeted anything? Where is that and where does it stand?
Then internal control is not budgeted. It's in the front of the book as a new program to discuss.
So we will address that tomorrow under new programs and staffing.
So it wasn't included, it wasn't included in the 24 budget either?
No, it was taken out.
It was taken out.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Todd, in audit and tax preparation, $130,000. There's no pension audit next year. Shouldn't we see a decrease in that number?
I think obviously we're waiting for them, and just so you know, we're knowing the audit too, since we just completed it, obviously that's why we don't show any expenditures to date. All those bills will be forthcoming. I think, Dwight, that, once we finally get obviously this month, we'll actually get the engagement services letter, and we'll know exactly what that number is. So before we have the next audit committee meeting on the 19th, so if those numbers can be refined, it was a placeholder given just service increases. So to your point on the pension itself, if that completely goes away, yes, you'll see, we hope we can fine tune that.
Well, it does go away, so it shouldn't be in the budget for 2026. Can we modify that?
I believe this will be the first year that we're renegotiating the rates with CBIZ if we choose to use them again.
I didn't hear that, Amanda. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I believe for this budget, will be the first year that we don't have the agreed upon rate increase with CBIZ. So because we haven't negotiated that with them for the 2025 audit, we made some assumptions on increases, but we will be able to fine tune it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Janet.
So I know this might not be the right time to ask, but overall, in terms of the macro picture, I think what I would like to see over time is, since the majority of the budget, like 80 or 90% of the budget is personnel, so over time, in terms of the total amount of personnel in the organization, over the years, that there might be mission creep going on in terms of the size of the amount of personnel going up over time. So I would like to see the macro picture in terms of what Nancy was asking too, in terms of the overall personnel and how they have been going up or down in terms of the total organization, since that's really, and then that links to the Section 3, which I think last time was empty too, in terms of program modifications. So there are some program modifications going on in different places, but they should be consolidated from a macro point of view in Section 3, because that's one of the budget principles we have, which you have not really applied in principle. So I think that showing that macro picture in terms of personnel changes overall, in terms of net amounts over the years, and how they have been modified to create more efficiencies, that should be detailed out in Section 3. And we are not doing that currently.
So section 3 we've used typically if there is a actual new program that we're delivering for the members, whether it's in addition to something we already offer. When we have somewhat of a reshuffling of how we're applying our staffing resources, unless there is a cost differential or increase, we really don't address that in section 3. We've done that within the departments where we've made some modifications to how we're deploying our resources, but it doesn't result in a increase or a decrease in the overall cost. It's just better utilization of the resources that we have. So typically we haven't used section 3 for that. We've used that for actual delivery of programs or services that is different year over year.
Janet?
And just real quick, I mean, the great thing about NetSuite, because I'm sitting here, in 21 we spent $8.2 million in salaries and wages, 8.6 in 22, 9.2 in 23, 9.7 in 24. And then obviously the budget at the rolled up level today, you have to go back and scroll up and look at it. So, but we can certainly pull those analytics together now with the investment in the tools that you guys have provided us. So it's a good thing.
Janet, you had no question? Any other questions? Nancy?
Yeah, on the overtime line, you have it at 8,000, and I just want to ask Todd, are you sure about that? You know, we've, last year, 27,000, this year, 35,000. Do we have non-exempt employees doing the work? And just having run a finance department myself, I know there's a lot of overtime that goes in, so I just want to make sure we're not being too optimistic about that, and maybe you need more, or are you sure that 8,000 is going to cover it?
So if you were to look at the first verbiage here, salary and wages reflect a deliberate shift from variable overtime spending to a stable planned investment on our senior accounting team. So we're looking to shift them, and I'm going to be working with HR in terms of their employment classification to move them into a more stable, less overtime use, because most of that overtime comes from our senior team in close crisis, and we're going to try to change a little bit how we're doing it. So some of the increases that you'll see on the salary line offset those overtime wages. In terms of actual overtime, certainly this year was I would say somewhat unique in the fact that we had so much pressure to get so much done with the NetSuite implementation. Those will normalize now that we are up and running and things are smoothed out. So I actually am very confident we're going to spend a lot less on overtime, along with those offsets that we're going to work with HR for. So something just so everyone knows that. Because I don't like those variables. It's hard to plan for. Yeah.
Any other questions? So before you get into the technology piece, I'd like to take a 5-minute break, if that's okay with everybody. It's 10:37, so we'll be back at, just turned 10:38, so we'll be back at 10:43.
Okay, so we are moving on to IT. And real quick on so we'll look at here, this is obviously on the salaries line. This is the position I mentioned that we shifted over. She's actually on board. So, as we look to, like I said, support our internal systems and our use of technology, that position seemed to be much more appropriate to bring in system analyst to support Sherry and all her work, right? We have field service management still coming online. We're going to have all the other tools and stuff we've talked about in phase 2 of some of our implementation. So to have that in-house resource from an existing position obviously will offset costs on third-party work or temp help, right? So that's where that increase comes from. And then if you go through the rest of this, just a couple things. Eric is here when we get into the actual detail, but the key line items here really are the computer program maintenance. So that is really, as we've moved to a new cloud-based subscription for all these, for NetSuite, for Workday, for Vermont Systems. That is the true cost. And just so, just to speak to like all the implementation costs, now that we have obviously the audit too, finalizing, we've talked about in the board meetings, the actual implementation costs that go to those projects that sit on the balance sheet. These are the costs that are actually expended that are the actual subscription fees. And so you'll see that there's a little bit of an increase over what we, from last year, but in terms of the actual use of all those tools now, there's a little bit of an increase because some of the stuff are coming online for a full year that we didn't have last year. But I would say this is absolutely right in line with everything we expected. The other line item below that is computer actual hardware. That is actually replacing outdated software, outdated hardware, computers, monitors, things like that in our system. And we do have a consistent regular swap out on a lot of those as they get older. And so that's why that budget is pretty much in there. And then Eric, if we want, have him speak to that too. I think the key part here is if you were to scroll down to the actual account computer maintenance program, there's an actual list of the 589,000 that makes up that. And it starts with, our commitment last year as we moved into having more robust cybersecurity. And like I said, Eric's here to be able to go through this list. And this is kind of like a detailed, itemized list of all those things that make that up. And so you'll see in there, obviously, the big drivers. You'll see NetSuite ERP of $159 for basically a yearly subscription. You'll see NetSuite Field Service Management. That's the one we just are going live with October 1st for all the work order desk, building maintenance. Sligo is basically the water example all these programs swim around in to connect back to us. So if you think of Sligo, it's kind of the middleware that is there for all these things to connect. SquareWorks is our more robust AP optical reading of invoices. Workday Adaptive, obviously, we talked about. That is our financial planning tool and piece that goes along with that. Vermont Systems, we just went over. That is and both systems to actually move into how we manage the other side of our business in RWC with reservations and all that. OpenPath is our security, Dwelling Lives are security. And then if you have direct questions on this, I'll go ahead and invite Eric to come up just to speak to the individual services. And if there's any questions on the overall budget, I don't think there's really any surprises in this budget other than that employee shift, which we did do on, like I said, from a strategic standpoint, it's better served to have someone over there. So open up for questions. Yeah, Susan.
I don't think I need the specifics on all the programs, but I'm assuming that the $560,000 is going to be something that's going to continue through the years and possibly increase, right?
It'll continue, but once we have stabilized, there won't be a lot of increases. The only increases would be if we have a partial year that goes into a full year. But we pretty much now sourced, I think, most of the tools. I won't say all the tools, but I think most of the tools to get us to more of a modern age in terms of our systems. So I would say that list is really what you see there as Rossmore 2.0. So.
And the consulting support, would you see that as an ongoing cost?
I see it as an ongoing support cost, just in the need of very specific things in terms of where we need to do a fix in NetSuite or we need to do something like that. We actually have some ongoing included customer service, account success managers within NetSuite that are all included that will provide some of that help. But certainly down the road, if we need to have an expert come in that's not foreseen, we will have that.
Okay, thank you.
Dwight, I think, did you have a question? Adrian and then Roy.
Okay, I have a number of questions. being an IT dude. I looked overall, and there's a page early in the whole book that shows the costs for each department over a 10-year period. And over that 10-year period, IT is the one department, the highest increase in expenses, went up 145%. Overall, we went up 41%. So it's gone up over 100% more than everybody else. In this year, in the budget this year, it is also the highest percentage increase of any department. And so, that starts to say, okay, so why is this all happening? And it's hard for me to understand all of those costs that are in there without getting into huge amounts of detail. But I see things like Adobe subscriptions, $30,000. Now, the full Adobe PDF subscription, the full professional thing, is $30 a month. So that means that we're spending, 35 people have full systems. That seems like, 83. 83 people have the full PDF capability. That seems unlikely.
It's not just for the Acrobat or the PDF reader, it also includes the news. The news used to have their own accounts that they would pay for, and we have folded that into our master corporate account, all under Rossmore, which is why you see increases. So they're using things like Creative Cloud, which entitles them to all the products Adobe offers. It's a much more expensive subscription. The rule with Adobe is if you buy 3 of their products or more, you're better off going Creative Cloud. And that's what we've done with the news.
But if you used Creative Cloud, that would cover the cost of 35 Creative Cloud subscriptions.
We do, but we have a lot of people, managers request, we have an onboarding sheet that when they have a new hire, we ask them, we make it very clear that there's an expense if you want the full Adobe version. Does this person need to be able to edit PDFs, or do they just need to read them? So if the manager requests that their employee is going to be able to create fillable PDFs, then that's the version we'll supply them with a license for that.
But why not use Nitro PDF? It's $180 a year. That's what I use. I pay the $180 because I need this capability, but I refuse to pay Adobe. And it costs half as much.
I think that's worth looking into. I'm going to have a hard time arguing with you why we shouldn't look into that. Right? Okay.
I'd like to actually argue that for a moment. One of the problems we've had in here for a really long time is that people tend to operate on different systems. Then when you have something like All Around Rossmore, where I need everybody operating in the same one, I'm suddenly trying to deal with all of these different pieces to put it all together. It's a time factor. Staff, the amount of time you have to put in, there's a cost associated with that as well. So all in one system, I can put out the All Around Rossmore guide now in 2 weeks. When we were on separate systems, it took an entire month. So that's just a factor to put in here. The reason that we have Adobe right now is because we have built ads at the Rossmore News that go back all the way to 2010. If every one of those ads has to be redesigned for a new system, and I've looked at Affinity, I've thought about making that move. The amount of time that will take would be an entire year and a lot of staff time absorbed in that at a time when I'm trying to maintain my budget at $1 million. So we do think about these things, we factor these out, but right now that expense is important so that we have that consistency across all of the departments and we're able to do the things that we need to do.
But I'm having a hard time understanding why 35 people here need the full Adobe package, which includes all the Photoshop type stuff, all the PDF stuff. I understand why people like Deborah and others need PDF capability, but that's $360 a year, not the
So not everyone is on the
it is.
full package, but if you look at the full for the PDF, which we do need, you are talking about at least 50 employees on that. And again, it's about having that editing ability with the PDF.
Yeah.
You have folks in different departments being able to share that across. So we do, I mean, Eric and I have looked at this. We've been auditing who has what. They've scaled back. There's some people who have lost things this year because they haven't used it enough. So it is audited. I mean, we are looking at that, and we're constantly looking at different software to see if we can make this more affordable.
Okay, and then again, and then another small sort of one of these lists, but I mean, it all adds up. Office 365 Azure. I use that service. I pay for it. They have two plans. They have a business standard plan, which is $12 a month. That would imply we have 308 people on that standard plan, or they have a somewhat more advanced plan, which would imply that we have 114 people on that plan. And it's kind of hard for me to understand why we have 114 people that need access to Word and Excel, as well as email.
For the folks that just need email, we buy the Exchange Online One plan. That only entitles them to email. So if it's an employee like that where they just need a Rossmore domain,
Okay, so
and it's
that's
very
$6.
inexpensive for that.
Yeah.
For the other people, we buy Office 365 Professional. That includes also some back-end tools, something called Intune that we use to deploy and image our machines with. Or at least it's a component to imaging those machines, which makes my frontline support guys who build those machines super efficient and quick. There's real no middle ground between, so I could buy the cheaper Office package, but then we would still have to buy Intune separately. And by the time you add in Intune, you really end up at the same place if you just buy Office 365 Professional.
Okay. And I see we still have an external data.
We do have the co-location.
Yeah. And are we going to continue that now that we're completely cloud-based?
We are not completely cloud-based. I would love to get there by 2027. We still are running VMware. The main reason for that right now, well, there's two main reasons. One is GenArch. GenArch is hard-coded into the IP addresses. We've tried to clone it. We've tried to put it in the cloud. There's no one left at GenArch that actually worked for GenArch. They've been absorbed by another company. And we made the decision last year to stop paying for support because they were so unhelpful. It did not make sense to pay $50,000 for nothing. So we really can't move GenArch until it is truly ready to be a repository where it could just sit on a server. I imagine Amanda and Todd are going to want to use it as a content library or be able to refer back to it. But that will probably never end up in the cloud because it'll break if we do. We've tried. Right now, we have at least 6 phone servers that are virtual machines that are running on VMware, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment, because I'm sure that's probably going to be one of your next questions.
No, it isn't.
Okay, but there are phone things. So one of the things, again, not for this year, but for next year, I'd like to move to soft phones. That would eliminate all that hardware that's at MOD. It would eliminate having to run the virtual servers on VMware, which would lessen our footprint and our need.
Okay.
All these things are working towards getting rid of Las Vegas. But the purpose Las Vegas serves right now is all day it's taking snapshots of MOD and it's punting them over to Las Vegas. So goodness forbid something happens to MOD, we at least have a copy of all of our data in a place we can restore it very easily and get things back up and running. So it's about business continuity. Once we move everything to the cloud and we get to where we're a fully cloud-based product like NetSuite, fantastic. I mean, everybody in the IT department would prefer it was that way. But based on the lay of the land right now, that's the way we're set up for the at least next couple of years.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to perhaps state the obvious here, but when I look back at Section 1 about the operating expense by type of service and try to get the big picture of our budget here, the second biggest increase in the budget here is information technology, the first being recreation. So that's clearly part of the story, and we pay $14.72 per man or per month for those services. Those services have gone up from 2017 from $6 per month to $14.72. I'm not complaining at all, but I just am sort of pointing out the obvious that this is one of our big stories that and residents wouldn't really feel it.
I understand.
It doesn't impact residents, but I think that residents need to understand that we had not well-functioning, backward systems, whatever, not safe, that we now have to pay a little bit more for.
That's very much true, and something else we've done just to consolidate some of the software costs to make more sense from an accounting point of view, are there things that were in public safety's software budget, things like our cameras that we use at the front gate and that we have around the property to keep an eye on cars coming and going and people coming up to MOD and things like that for safety. Those are now in that budget, as well as the open path that we have. You've seen a lot of these door sensors around Gateway and MOD, and that used to be under public safety, and we've also shifted that into IT. That way, when Todd wants to look at how much are we really spending on software, at least it's all in one bucket as opposed to distributed throughout several departments.
Could I I'd just like to jump in here too. Can you just, because of Nancy's question, Amanda, go ahead and put page 11 up. So if you look at IT, and that kind of talks to Adrian's question too, we're talking very different worlds. We're not talking, so the $6 back in those early days, this is before we made the decision to move to all these subscription-based modern tools. Okay, everything in the past was capitalized. It wasn't an operating expense, right? So there's a fundamental shift. And if you look at where those increases are coming from, we launched, basically 24 was the start of our NetSuite journey, right? We didn't go live in 25, but we were paying for some of the subscriptions to NetSeed, right? So we started paying, I believe, in June of 24 for the actual subscription. We then see an increase to this year where we actually went live. We're still bringing on some new systems. And then in 26, it really kind of shows with the last piece of Vermont systems kind of the steady state. So those increases in the last 3 years, even though they look significant, are really our unified shift into these tools, right? And you can't really compare where we are now to where we were in terms of infrastructure and technology. Okay?
If I could add to that, and Nancy, I think it's important for residents to understand that the NetSuite implementation, while it doesn't affect the residents right now, but it does enable My Rossmore, Vermont systems, reservation systems to all be integrated, dwelling live, gate passes, all those things are member benefits that will be coming about in 2026. So there will be a realization of this doubling cost of IT, but it's really because of the NetSuite implementation. And then I have a question for Eric, if I may.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Eric, I know you're the telephone guy. I think you are. So I see telephone expenses overall for all of RWC are projected to be $117,000 this year, and we're budgeting $153,000. Why would that be?
So we've moved some of the connections. Before, our internet connections were listed under programs and features, and those have been moved into telephone, where they had previously not been. So our fiber optic connections that feed our local, everyone that works here, not the residents, it includes that. It does also, I believe, Amanda, include the phones.
Yeah, and let me just jump in here. I'll follow on this sword. I actually did this one. This is a mistake. I had put in under general services. If Amanda jumps down there, I put the $120,000 into Workday. You'll see here, Dwight, where it shows the telephone run rate of 83,249. I kind of put in the 120 into Workday, and I put it into the month of December and did not break it out and remove the other forecast number. So you will see that number go down appropriately. So it'll be 120 as a total for all telephone budgets versus the 153.
Good, we're saving money.
Yes, we're saving money, and that was a user error on Todd Arterburn's part. So there you go.
Any other questions on the technology piece? Okay.
I have a clarification
Oh.
question.
Go ahead, Carl.
Item 76015, telephone specific to the IT budget. Can you just talk about what's the benefit of the service agreement with Maverick Networks and?
Yeah, absolutely. They're one of our better business partners, actually. When we have new employees, if we need a phone provisioned and our help desk guy has a backlog, we send an email to them. They can provision the phone remotely. We do have, as I mentioned, 5 or 6 different virtual servers that do different things for our phone system. When it's time to do upgrades, they are the ones that implement those upgrades. I think 2 of them are Linux. Very specific, it's not hard to work on, but they do it all day long, and it's worth it for us not to have any mistakes so that we ensure that our uptime stays up. We've also had some issues in the past with, say, our voice recorder server, which they use at the front gate to record conversations. When we have issues like that come up, or the server does hiccups, essentially, they're a great partner to have, because while the group of us are pretty good generalists, you just can't know everything. And that's where the telephony part, they really come in, and they've never let us down. The other stuff, the other money that's in there is for replacement phones. Our phones are no longer under warranty. They are starting to fail. So there is a little bit of money in there to cover phones as they break. And that's one of the reasons, too, in the future, I'd really like to look to soft phones, because now you're looking at a $13 pair of Amazon basic headphones with the microphone, as opposed to a $500 telephone that sits on someone's desk. Does that help clarify?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
No other questions? Jeff?
Okay, we're on to handyman. Yaron?
Good morning, everyone. So, Handyman has very little changes in it as far as the narrative. So we still have our 2 Handyman employees. That is not going to change. Revenue is up for Handyman. And that's from the increase from the $275 annually to the $300 annually per service. So we have about an 8% increase in revenue. And overall, we have net income is also increasing because we have a decrease in our expenses from budget. But it's pretty basic. So if there's any questions on it, please let me know. Yes, Nancy.
If I annualize year-to-date July on the handyman income, it annualizes to $556,000. So you're showing an increase from budget, but it's actually flat to actual, including a fee increase. So something's wrong with that. I think it was 40,000 up from budget, but if I take 324,000 year-to-date July, divide by 7, multiply by 12, that gets to 556.
So that's a great question, but in all actuality, I don't know the answer to it. Todd, can you help me out at all, or no?
Yeah, I don't know, my computer. So obviously, when you look at actual revenue forecasting on the revenue, right? So we're in the basically the from a seasonal standpoint, I would say this forecast would be conservative, because putting revenue that may not materialize is open to risk. We are basically showing that we're going to do a lot more on the bottom line. They may actually be realized. Handyman is unpredictable, depending on the use of that service. I mean, certainly going forward, and one of the things we talked about in terms of a forecasting culture, being able to have the time now to go back with the tools we now have to look at the actual seasonal revenue that's been received over years and apply, compare that to a budget. And some of that analysis just is not at the depth it should be yet, because we are just got these tools online and we're just starting to use it. Like I said, implementing that forecast culture. So we erred on the side of caution on this line item. In terms of overall revenue, obviously, yes, the revenue fee increase is based on overall budget. We are forecasting, 537, to answer your question, over 324 that could come in higher. But it's in the zone, right? And so,
Well, yeah, I mean, so even if I take your seasonality argument and I say this budget is 537, the fee increase is a 9% increase. So 537 times a 9% increase would be 585. So I just think it's light on the budget.
No. So you're saying real quick, you're saying that if you look at our current actual through July of 324 through 7 months, and you were to straight line that for 12 months, you come up with $555,000, right? So we're talking about, do we put 555 versus the 537, right? And then a fee increase. So I think we're splitting hairs a little bit here in terms of just being cautious on our revenue. Happy to have further discussion on it, though, in terms of philosophy. Yeah, Janet.
So are there any metrics about people sign up for the handyman probably when they first move in, like I did, and how long they keep it? So if our sales are down, if this is true, which I think it might be, because that's when you need the most help, right? When you're first moving in. And if our sales are down, wouldn't you think, I mean, I don't know if you guys keep these kind of metrics, like who signs up when and how long do they keep it? I'm just curious.
No, those metrics aren't currently monitored.
Just for conversation, I have people in my court who have that service, and they've never, every year they renew it, and they've had it all the time. So I think it's just a personal thing, whether, how people feel about being able to. I think the handyman service is really a good service, and it's something that can be. It gives you a certain amount of confidence. If you need something done, you got somebody to call right away. So, like I said, I got people, I think there's 2 or 3 that have it all the time and have had it. Any other questions on handyman?
Okay, I think we're ready to have recreation in Amatola.
Super. So recreation. So this is a rather large department, and it includes a number of our quality of life programs, including excursions, the classes and special programs like our Friday lunch program, events, and of course, reservations. So within some of these programs, some of them are feed or ticketed, and some of them are what we call non-ticketed events. And you're going to see this as line items, but we always get a question about, so what are the non-ticketed events? So generally, they're things like the weekly movies, the spotlight events, the concerts at Dollar Park, the Friday night concerts in Peacock, 4th of July. So just so you have an idea as we're going through the different line items, that's a little bit of a difference there. The staffing, here it is. The staffing is 13.55 FTEs. And I do want to point out that the Community Services Director, my position, and then the Senior Manager for Resident Services, which is Kelsey Klima's position, we're fully 100% funded here, but understand the responsibilities are distributed, throughout the different programs that I'm up here talking about. So as we look into the budget and look at the different changes, I did want to make a note under salaries and wages that you do see an increase due to the addition of the application support specialist that was approved as part of last year's budget. And we filled that position at about May. That's Jeff Doctor here. We had 1 and we went to 2. Then going down the list here, the first line item I want to talk about is 55141, which is rentals community revenue. So this shows a decrease both in this year's projected and 2026 proposed. So as everyone's aware, we made a lot of changes to the room reservation system with club reservations. And some of those changes resulted in an increase in the no fee, no service rooms that we had. And so more clubs are taking advantage of those, like where we hold their events are different. And I think you may have recalled that there was this inequity where some people had same types of reservations but were paying and others not. So we've leveled that out, and so now we're kind of seeing the impact to revenue, because a lot of those smaller spaces had actually been available in the past or were being picked up as small private rentals. So we're seeing the, a little bit of the impact of that, but it's really like norming what that program area is. On 55149, which is excursions collection revenue, that shows a $45,000 increase. So for excursion collection, you're also going to see the expense for those programs too, and those will offset each other. So the cost of the excursions are going up, so the revenue is also going up. And Anna does a really good job of balancing and managing that. So for the cost of routine entertainment and special events, it looks like there's an increase, but what we did is we reclassified some of the expenditures. And so this is another example of, because we have more detail in the NetSuite budget, Amanda kind of gave us direction to say, let's get some of those really big, heavy areas and start moving things so you're really tracking the expenditures more accurately and you know what I would say the team has been really good in understanding what they're purchasing, but in a glance in the budget, it's classifying the appropriate type of expense to the appropriate line item. So for the cost of routine entertainment, what we did was we included costs like entertainment fees, refreshments, decorations, 262249. Those had been classified under the line item, which is now 74060, small tools and equipment. So you could see it wasn't the right place to book something like that. And so then in 720767, 20,000 was moved, to there from small tools and equipment. And again, it's the same thing. We're trying to account for the expenditures in the right line item. And those are for non-expendable supplies non-expendable supplies and small equipment like room partitions, floor easels, AV equipment, canopies, and the like. So it's not an increase, but again, moving funds around. So those are the big changes to the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dwight?
So, Ann, I noticed there's some costs outlined for Thunder Ticks and some other things. Are we double counting because we have Vermont Systems in IT?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I made a note and I forgot to talk about that. So I think that's under, because it's in the narrative part. Is it dues and Okay.
Yeah, under dues and memberships.
It's dues and subscriptions, yes, under dues and memberships. So you're going to see in this budget and in the fitness budget, we're still projecting the cost of that. What we want to make sure we do is that we run parallel systems. All of these subscriptions we can cancel within 30 days notice. So when we cut them off, then we'll realize some savings to the budget, but we don't know. We're hoping this is going to be something that goes seamlessly without glitches, and we only have to pay them for the first quarter, maybe through the end of June at the furthest. But if for some reason we needed to carry it through the year, the data wasn't migrating, we really wanted to run parallel for a while, we wanted to make sure that we booked it. And then the cost of the new subscription is in the IT budget for Vermont Systems.
So the potential savings when we can cancel it is about the same as the cost of Vermont Systems, as I recall.
Correct.
Thank you.
Roy, did you have a question?
My question is very simple. Last year we approved the 2025. We had a $88,000 additional from rooms reservation services as anticipated. But looks right now, even with increased price, still it's going to be go down. Next year will be almost a 14.3% less. So yeah, in other words, many members are not using the room services. I'm really wondering, the room services has been a successful project or it's a very questionable project?
So the room rental income has decreased, but as Ann detailed at the very beginning of her presentation, most of that is due to the implementation of no fee, no service rooms, as well as the simple tech utilization as well, where there's no fee. So that was a shift in kind of policy where we were charging based on what the approved rates were in '24, but we moved towards a model of more no fee, no service type of rooms, as well as for the technology. So that was a policy shift. It doesn't impact the number of reservations taking place. What it impacts is how much we're collecting for those reservations. So clubs are benefiting now by having a lot of those spaces available to them.
Nancy?
I was just looking at the margins on excursions, like if you just take the cost of the excursion divided by the revenue, 2025 year-to-date, it's 82.82. And what we have in the budget here is 0.67, so a lot wider margin. But were you saying that that 60,000 below for small tools actually belongs up with cost of resident excursions? No, that's totally unreal. So then if that's not the case, then we're moving from a margin of 0.82 to 0.67 next year. So higher profit, if you will, on the excursions.
The 60,000 is moving into routine entertainment and special events, or increased by routine entertainment and special events increased by 40,000, but that came from equipment repair and maintenance. I'm sorry, it came from supplies.
74060.
Small supplies, small tools, and equipment.
Hammers and small screwdrivers.
It just didn't fit the description of what it was used for in this budget. So
yeah,
60,000 was eliminated and used.
I got you. So I just wasn't understanding that, but my comment really has to do with the relation between the expenses on excursions and the revenue. And it's like we're moving from now, our expenses are 82%, but next year in the budget, it's showing, what did I do that calculation at, 67%. I don't know if something's moving in the underlying dynamics relation between the revenue and expense.
Well, we raised the fee, and we always strive to cover the costs of excursions, and so now there's $80,000 in that differential to cover those costs.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Alrighty,
Aquatics.
so aquatics. So the aquatics team, I'll just talking about the department itself. Of course, they provide for the safe use of all of our pools. We also train our own lifeguards, just so you know. So the budget will include costs of certification and training and things like that. And so the team includes an aquatics coordinator, 2 head lifeguards, 2 lead guards, and then the lifeguards are an FTE, so it's a combination of full-time and part-time seasonal people that make up the 6. But the full FTE count is 11, and that's unchanged from like the past couple of years. Looking at their budget, we did another thing where we adjusted line items to make sure we had the appropriate expenditure log to the right line item. So what we ended up doing under 70219 is we decreased that staff training line item by 1,000. We wanted to make sure we were accurately portraying in that the cost to certify and recertify lifeguards. And so the team includes an aquatics coordinator, 2 head lifeguards, 2 lead guards, and then the lifeguards are an FTE, so it's a combination of full-time and part-time seasonal people that make up the 6. But the full FTE count is 11, and that's unchanged from like the past couple of years.
Nancy?
And then in 70240 for uniforms, that also was reduced to reflect the prior year's expenditures. Actually, so there are reductions. We weren't moving things around in this account. I'm happy to answer questions about aquatics.
Adrian?
In the past, we've had a lot of trouble finding lifeguards. Is that expected to continue? Is this budget like a little bit over because we'll probably not fill it, or I'm just
What I'd say
wondering.
is like we've actually been successful in some of our full-time positions where we have turnover, we have some anticipated retirements, and so we're kind of rebuilding the team a bit. And we have found a different way to staff to get the coverage we need for the summer months. And particularly, we always need to make sure that we have the staffing coverage for Hillside, because technically that one is open to the public whenever we have family swim. So it's not over. We're trying to norm it, but we seem to be on target with the spending.
Dwight?
So, and on the salary line item, it's a $100,000 increase from 2025 to 2026, a 22% increase. But I don't see a change in the head count. So what would account for that 22% increase?
I may need to defer to finance for that.
So in aquatics, under salaries and wages, it's showing a 1.6%.
That's, if you do 2025 forecast to 2026 budget, it's an increase of 22%, $100,000.
It could be open part-time positions. I honestly don't know. I did not really take that detail to look at the salary and benefit line items.
Maybe we could take a fresh look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anything else for aquatics?
Could that have been when we switched from a management company into taking it on our own?
They didn't really have anything to do with the pool. What it could be is that we did have a closure for the roof, and so there was a reduction of hours for about 2 months. That's the only thing I can think of that was different this year with the pools. But that would have been pretty substantial.
Any other questions about aquatic and fitness? For aquatics, please.
Okay, so
I can jump in real quick on that because I looked it up. So to Ann's point, we were running lighter in the beginning of this year, probably because of the pool closure, of around, February was 29, 32, 30, 33. And then in August through December, where we did our forecast, we went back up to the budget level around 45 being fully employed. So, but we'll do a deeper dive.
Just a little quality time with Todd. Anything else for aquatics?
Okay, fitness.
Super. Okay, so fitness. I think everyone's well aware of our fitness program. We've been talking about them a lot. They provide a variety of different programs, personal training, contract instructor-led classes and workshops, promotional fitness events and fitness challenges, and this year they brought back Camp Rossmore, which was great. When you look at the staffing level, you'll see that in 2026 it appears there's an addition of a 0.05 of a position. Actually, we are accurately recording what wasn't being recorded in the budget in the past. There also wasn't a separate line item for those contract part-time fitness instructors, but we wanted to fully account for the staff accurately this year. There was no impact to the budget because of that, though.
Carol?
So the fitness instructors are the couple of instructors who come in and they just teach 1 or 2 classes?
They just teach 1 or 2 classes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If I could ask a question. For line 74045, administrative supplies, what do you anticipate is going to make up that over $8,000 increase by the end of the year? So July actual was 1211. You're predicting it's going to be 10,000 end of year.
I'll have to get some detailed information from Jackie on that. I wouldn't know offhand.
Okay.
You're in fitness. Okay. So the changes to the budget. So we adjusted between a couple of line items. Again, we wanted to make sure we were expending the right thing in the right line item. So under staff training, we decreased that to $1,500 and reassigned it to dues and memberships. And that's why you see a $1,500 increase. Okay. So just so you know, staff training, those are the CEUs that the instructors need to acquire in order to maintain their certifications. And then dues or memberships, the fees actually paid to the certifying organizations. So we kind of audited that to make sure we had the right amounts in the right places. Under subscriptions and books, that's 70224. Again, this is where we have all the software charges. And so we are putting in the amount, and it's actually $4,725 more than last year. It could have been that things were booked to the other because our subscriptions haven't changed. I think that they just weren't being tracked accurately. But this line item is based on the cost of software through the end of the year. Again, we expect that we're going to do the full switch over no later than June. But I mean, we're targeting to be active the first quarter, but there's really good reason why you want to keep the historic, just in case you have glitches in implementation. Under 72088, which is equipment repairs and maintenance, this line item is pretty much used to repair all of the fitness equipment in there. We have a contract with a company called Gym Doctors, and they're repairing or replacing components and whatnot. And so the equipment is good, it's repairable, but it's aging, so the cost of that has increased. So that's reflected in the budget. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Dan?
Yeah, so the same question that Leanne asked, but on the next account, 74060. The year-to-date through July is 0. We're expecting to spend $13,000 in the next 5 months and then $20,000 next year. So what is that?
So the small equipment, so those are things like your small, like Bosu balls, the handles and the grips on equipment. And a lot of times what you'll do is we order, it's a seasonal thing. So those are things you don't see expended consistently throughout the year. And so there are certain periods of the year, like in the last quarter, we're usually taking in inventory and doing big purchases to replace things to have for the following year.
Janet?
I think this is a Todd question, but in every department, I'm like freaking out over these bank charges. Is there any way that we could lower our bank charges? Because I think you've addressed this in some of the committee meetings, but I mean, the costs are just getting higher and higher and higher. And for every department, I mean, this is like, I don't know what the total bank charge is for Rossmore. It's got to be like millions of dollars or $1 million at least. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, it's pretty much all credit card processing fees. And so I think obviously we should try to, if we can, negotiate and get the better rates as possible. And I think maybe some of the 26 initiatives would include our banking overall. But yeah, it's a big number. So.
It's also, over the years, has increased as we've decreased our reliance on cash and people's ability to pay cash for any service that we offer. So as far as staff handling cash and processing, you have some savings there and reducing some liability. But overall, the use of credit cards comes with obviously all of the charges, and our software systems all basically operate on a credit card basis now.
But you can take cash or checks? Or
We
you don't
try
like to?
not to take cash as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Any other questions?
Okay, we are ready then to move on to our golf course operations, bowling greens, and golf pro shop. I'll bring Mark.
That okay, Jeff? Tell me how we're doing there. Now I got to stay here. Okay. Hi, everybody. How are we doing this morning? Getting to the afternoon. Mark Heptig, Director of Golf. I'm going to talk to you, as we just said, golf courses, bowling greens, and the pro shop. The golf course, 150 acres right down the middle of the valley, some of the most beautiful property we have here at Rossmore. It's a prize to take care of it and responsibility each day, and we try and do that. We have the staffing situation is we have a director of golf, myself. We have a golf course superintendent who this year has worked full-time. The idea was to get an assistant golf course superintendent sometime this year. We've done a lot of interviewing. We've been doing a lot of seeking. That position still is unfilled at this time, so we're still looking for that special person. Landscaping staff is 13 members. It is a very small crew in comparison to any other golf course in the Bay Area, but we get it done. We have one lawn bowling caretaker. Really, in reality, we've talked about this before in the meetings. That person goes up and takes care of the bowling greens in the morning, works several hours up there, then he comes down and helps on the golf course. So we have some additional help there. We also, to make that one person kind of round off, we have golf course people that go up there sometimes to help with bowling greens on big projects and replacements and things like that. So it ends up being one person. We have a head professional, Jackie Vigil, who many of you know, who has been on the staff now for 5 years. We have 2 golf professionals beyond that, and then we have some pro shop help. So that's the staffing right there. When looking at the budget for 2026, first thing I want to talk about is really income. We are having a very good year this year. My plan was to, because there's a lot of people who want to play golf, take advantage of that and suggest some fee increases, which the Finance Committee and the board have already seen. We're looking at increasing the annual and quarterly passes significantly. Basically, the break even is, for the last several years, been 74 rounds for those. It would go up to 80 would be the number, the break even for those, which I think is still very doable for most of the golfers here at Rossmore that take care of that program. We would also see increases in the daily rate for guests and the resident sponsor, $1 to $2 in each one of those categories. And then in the resident sponsored guest program, which went up $300 last year, I'm suggesting it go up another $100 to $2,000. That program has been very successful for us. So overall, I'm suggesting a revenue increase that's quite significant there of about $265,000 to my budget. As far as increases, we do see in categories 70219, 70233, and 70240 and 70245. Those are all staff training, dues, uniforms, and travel. Those all going up slightly. That is in anticipation really of having an assistant superintendent because they're going to need that support for their job. And so that's built into the budget, filling that position. Also in supplies, due to increases in 72067, we see a little increase there. The big one is water. That's 76010, $100,000. I think we've talked about it in the meetings, but we are seeing a drastic drop in the water that's available in the creek, and that has led to us suggesting that we go up for next year. And really, every year we don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to get a lot of rain? Are we going to get no rain? Are we going to get the same amount? This has been really, I would call it almost an average year. It stopped early, but the temperatures really haven't been that high. So it's hard to say what's going to happen next year as it is every year, but we believe that's probably a good number, 100,000.
Mark, could I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
So it is $100,000 over the budget, but it's only $10,000 over what we're forecasting.
Yeah.
And so it would appear to me that we're a little low on that water because East Bay mud rates are going up, 8 to 10%? And the water from the condensation units is going down. So do you think we're a little low on that item?
Well, again, we manage it the best we can, too. I mean, we're taking some areas and making sure we're not overwatering when we have to. We're watching that budget item all the time. So, again, this is the best guess that Blake and I could have. I think we did a good job with that. You could pick another number if you want, but again, my income is enough that I think if we're a little bit over or under on that number, we'll still be okay. That's kind of the plan. Reductions include pest control, 72007 for $7,500. Equipment repair going down, about 20,000 suggested. And then in repair of tees, greens, and fairways going down another $20,000 there. That's 73060. So that's the overall look in the golf course budget. And I'd be happy to take any questions or other questions.
Carol?
I'm curious about one thing. This is your salaries, you're projecting it to go down. Why?
I'll refer to...
It's the first time we've seen salaries go down.
I think that is in relation to the allocation between the assistant superintendent position and the superintendent adjustment, should that take place if we're able to fill that position.
Adrian?
I know we've talked about water conservation. It's one of our goals as a board. And I believe that there was an idea that you would be converting a certain amount of turf to mulch in this coming year. Is that reflected in this? In other words, are you assuming that you will in fact do that, and we therefore need to ensure that in the capital budget we make that turf conversion?
Yes, that was a thought process that would be in there. We're hoping we get to do that program. We've kind of not done it over the last 2 years. We highly suggest we do it with water going up and the present situation with the creek. So yes, that was part of the conversation that Blake and I had when we were forming the budget.
I have a quick question. Turf maintenance supplies, 73050, and repair tees, greens, and fairways, 73060. Both mention purchase of sand and decomposed granite, and I wondered, is there a distinction with repair tees that you're using a contractor, not actually purchasing the supplies with that account? Just why are they both listed in two different accounts?
So yes, contractors, we really have a maintenance crew, not a improvement crew whatsoever. We have used PAR consultants for many years for the changes. For instance, rebuilding the bunkers is a program we've done every year where we go in and do 5, 6, maybe 8 bunkers a year. As a matter of fact, when you see that in the budget right now through July, you'll see in repairs of tees, greens, and fairways, there's little or no expense there because Par Consultants hasn't been available. So we are looking to spend some money still in this fall area, but probably not using them. We have a couple of other possibilities, Western Golf and also DHR, which we hope to have come in and do some work on several levels for us. But at this point, both golf courses have had very little improvement projects because we don't have a contractor available. But the sand and stuff like that, that is for the contractors.
So the line in 73060 repair tees that says we anticipate spending $30,000 on sand, that $30,000 is actually coming out of turf maintenance supplies, not.
No, that's additional too, because you have sand that you're putting on the greens, for instance, which is repairing the greens. We do that. We're doing that right now with aerification and putting sand down. But when you're talking about repairs, you're talking about taking the sand out of the bunkers and replacing with new sand. That goes into the contractors. So there's really several different uses we use. I maybe didn't answer that question very well the first time, so.
Got it.
The sand that you take out, though, is also reused back on the course in other spots, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing's thrown away.
That is very true. We reuse a lot of our stuff, so yes.
Hari.
So is there a separate like cost-benefit analysis of the pro shop? Like, is it a net revenue maker or net loss?
So I guess you're talking about how the use of the staff in the pro shop, or?
Could we finish up this budget? Because we'll get to the pro shop here in a minute. Is there any other questions in terms of golf operations, golf course?
Yeah, just one question from Leanne here. On your head count list, there's a note that says head count excludes range workers. I'm not really sure I understand what that means.
Yeah, we've done that year in and year out. It's such a small number, and Amanda, do you have that number? I don't.
Well, what is a range worker?
Oh, I'm sorry. So we have high school kids that come in the evening and help us do some of the cleanup in the evenings. They start 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sometimes during the weekends, but often they come in at 3 or 3:30, and they're in charge of cleaning the carts, taking them down and getting them charged. We use our regular staff, including myself, all during the day and in the morning for prepping for play. But for the evenings, they clean up the carts, put them away, and then they also pick up the range balls. And so those two tasks are the main things they do, along with garbage and maybe some vacuuming or things like that. But those are the two main tasks they do. And we have 2 of them scheduled each day.
Dwight, did you have a question?
I did. I just want to mention that golf is an expensive operation, about $3 million a year to maintain our golf courses. But I applaud your efforts to get revenue as high as possible. $1.7 million, a little bit over $1.7 million, is higher than what I normally look for. I look for 50%, to make sure that we're covering that. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for maintaining a magnificent amenity, even though I'm lousy at golf and I don't play golf, but I love looking at it. So.
Thank you, Dwight. Thank you. Should we move on to lawn bowling?
Yeah, let's move on to lawn bowling, and then we will get to the golf pro shop.
Sure. In lawn bowling, we don't have a lot of changes there. Really, the big one is water. So increasing there on 76010. And everything else we're keeping the same at this point for the lawn bowling.
Nancy and then Carol.
Yeah, I'm just, you talked about 70,000 rounds of golf, but how many people use, or what kind of metrics do you have around lawn bowling?
The lawn bowling is around 150 to 200 people. I think that's how many are in the club.
Okay, thank you.
Cheryl?
Not to be a broken record, but this is a lot of money that we're spending, especially on water. And I know we've talked for the past 2 years, I want to say, about converting this to artificial turf. And I think I saw it projected in a conversion budget for 2027. Is there any way we can move this project up, especially based on the increase in the cost of water?
So we will be talking with the planning committee about the capital budget here in the coming months. That is kind of a larger project besides just converting the turf from natural grass to artificial. But that is something that'll be prioritized with the planning committee in the near future when we do the capital budget.
Nancy?
Do we collect any fees from the club for lawn bowling?
0.
So it costs like almost $1,000 a year per person that uses that service. Kind of a lot.
Any other questions on golf or lawn bowling?
Golf shop?
Golf shop. Golf shop, it's been a very good year this year. We've seen some excellent numbers in sales, along with the cart rental, which has been very good this year. Really, each category, lessons, driving range, everything is to budget or better, which is great news. And projecting next year, I've forecast that in for next year, those increases and maybe a little bit more, because we really consider that the rounds are going to at least stay steady, if not go up, and I think we've created a good system there. So I think things are good. We see those numbers going up. So in 55430, you see increase in merchandise, and in cart rental and lessons. So those are all good numbers there. Really, the rest of the budget as far as expenses are pretty steady. I don't see anything changing there. So not a lot of changes as far as the golf shop. To answer the question about how it works out, there has been talk in the past about putting the two budgets together because the people in the pro shop do a number of different tasks. One of the biggest tasks we do is we collect the fees for the golf course. We're checking people in. In fact, that never stops. Those of you who are golfers on this know that when you walk in, there'll be two people at the counter almost all the time because that's what it takes. And the main function is checking people in for golf and taking golf fees. So that task or duty could easily be on the golf course, but it shows up here. So that's just the reality of the budget and how it works. I hope that explains that.
And Mark, that's something I've been pining for years, because it would be great to see the profitability of the pro shop just based on selling merchandise and rental carts and so on. But I guess that's a subject for another day.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly put it together. The thing is that, again, what we're doing in the golf shop daily is quite broad. I mean, even taking care of the club's tournaments. We spend, it's one, during the tournament season, it's one person per day ferried out to a number of different people just to run the tournaments each week. Because we put in so many tournaments, well, that means we've got to go in and we've got to set up the tournament inside Golf Genius, which takes several hours, do the foursomes, do the scorecards, running the event that day, being there to do the prize fund. That's just a service to the clubs. And that's a person probably per day during the week, just doing that out of that small staff. That shows up somewhat in the budget, but it doesn't really tell the whole story of everything we do. Teaching. We run teaching where we have generally one person out there per half hour, and we hopscotch our staff so we can cover the counter, and everything else has to go on. One of the things you're going to see tomorrow is hopefully an increase in staff at the front counter that is non-professional staff, so that maybe we could have more people teaching, because in actuality, the way you drive it is get more golfers. One of the best ways you can get more golfers is if you teach more, because now you're driving sales in the pro shop and you're driving people to play the game. Having that help would be great at the counter.
Dan?
Yeah, Mark, on that comment, I know when you try and schedule a lesson, you sometimes got to go out 3-4 weeks because there's not enough professionals to give lessons, or they're not there enough hours, combination of both. But so that's a fair point.
Yeah, that's really one of the drivers right now, is I know that right now I'm 2.5 weeks out and Jackie is similar. And so we're turning away business. If we have more help at the counter, we can provide more service. That's one of the biggest things we could do.
Nancy, and then Adrian.
Yeah, Mark. Do you have a sense for how many people, not just rounds of golf, but how many Rossmore residents use the golf course, use it regularly, use it once a year? Like, what percentage of total people use the golf course?
Well, we know the clubs have about 750, 800 members in them. Meaning the 4 clubs, the 9ers, 18ers for the women, the Happy Hackers, and the men's club, about 750 to 800. That's just a small portion, though, of the people that play golf. We have, actually, the vast majority of people that probably never join a club event. They just come out and play golf. And then you have their guests on top of that. But inside the valley, I would say, the number I've used a lot is between 2,000, maybe 2,200, maybe 2,500 at the most, but somewhere in there between 2,000 and 2,500 are probably the residents that play the game.
Adrian?
And this is perhaps more for Todd than Mark, but really, why do we have the pro shop separate from the golf course? I mean, it is one.
It was going to come up, Todd. Every year it comes up.
It is one business unit.
So I am a big believer in consolidating these two. This was before my time, Adrian. However, with one click in NetSuite, I can consolidate these two into one entity. So we basically have that. And if we want to start looking at it as a consolidated entity, I think it makes a lot of sense to have these together and lawn bowling separate. So we can certainly do that, and we can certainly add, like I said, with one click, I can add and consolidate these two into one business unit. Yep.
I will make one other comment here, too. It's a little bit off as far as it shows under Golf Pro Shop merchandise sales at about $137,000, and then it also says the cost of goods at $108,000. Believe me, it's much larger margin than that, because a lot of these numbers in here are stuff that I've bought for the year that isn't even on the floor yet. So, I've bought it, it's in storage. It's not on the floor yet, so we can't sell it. It's going to happen here this fall or into the holiday. So,
Mark, what is your markup percentage?
Well, it depends on the item. Sometimes it's 100%. We sell our water for $1 and we buy it at 15 cents a bottle. So there you go. Dan, don't say anything about that. He comes in and buys water all the time. So it really varies a lot. A lot of the items will be a 50% markup. Some things are 25 or 30. And there are items we have to get rid of, like any business does. And you're going to just mark it down and get it out the door.
Budgeting at around 37% markup.
That's a great number.
Average.
Yeah.
So we are at noon right now. This would be a good time to break for lunch if you're ready to do so, and then we can resume after that with our next department.
For 1 hour? Till 1? So we'll recess from now till 1 o'clock and return back.
Do you have some details on how lunch will work at all?
Yes, so lunch is in the back of the room. There are tables, and your lunch that you placed earlier, if you forgot what you ordered, there is a list on the back counter. So go ahead and go back there. There are assorted sodas and bottles of water, and again, fresh hot coffee.
So if we finish lunch early, we can go ahead and start earlier, and then we can get out of here earlier. So if you don't need the whole hour, we can be back at, say, 12:15. Okay, just before we move on to the next subject, the last one we were just on is about the golf shop. And I wanted to just recognize Dan Ring and myself for supporting the golf shop. So they do have a lot of really nice things there if you wanted to stop by, and everybody wear supportive RWC gear. And so
this promotional message brought to you by.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to get started. I believe everybody's back, and we're going to move on to facilities. And you can take it away.
Test, test. Now it's on. Okay. Hello, everybody. So picking up with facilities maintenance. So this team is responsible for taking care of all of the clubhouses, all of the outdoor amenities, and they also oversee the different street and sidewalk maintenance, so in storm drain maintenance. And it's actually led by Martine Lemons, who's our trust asset manager. We have a supervisor, John Rafe, and then we have 4 different service technicians. Each one of them really is highly skilled in a number of the trades, and they really do a lot of amazing work at a pretty efficient cost. As we move into the budget, what you will see with this program are small increases to a number of line items, because what we're finding, particularly with these type of materials and services, escalated costs within the last year. And so many of these adjustments are based on what we're projecting for the year end in 2025, and so we're projecting them for next year as well. So going down the list, the uniform and laundry has an increase in 500, and that's based on this year's actuals. And then the rest of the items really are relevant to the services that are provided by the team. So 72073, plumbing supplies, we're requesting an increase of 500. The equipment rental requests, we're also requesting a $500 increase there. Starting last year in 72092, we saw an increase pretty much in the chemicals it takes to maintain the balance of our pools. And so we're requesting a $17,000 increase, and this is based on 2024 actuals and what we're projecting this year. 72094 is elevator expense, and the 600 that is requested reflects the increase in the cost of service. In 72101, we're actually moving $1,000 from appliance repair and maintenance to 72170 appliance supplies. And so the reason for moving that between those line items is that it's largely due to maintenance of our HVAC system. And so our newest member of the facility maintenance team, that is his trade, where he is highly skilled, and he's already helped us do a lot of immediate response to things happening with our HVAC system, which I think everyone is aware is kind of old and it needs kind of this constant maintenance. So we shifted from 72101, which was more for the service calls, so we can actually have the equipment and the supplies in-house for our own team to work on that. 72195 is for alarm maintenance, and we reassigned that amount, which had been posted in 74031 under other licenses and fees. And again, this is part of more accurately reflecting what the expenditure is within our budget. So then if you look at other licenses and fee, the net decrease is not 22,000, it's 18,000, because under that line item, we have all the fees for the various compliance agencies that are paid, including the county health permits for the pool, for the kitchen operating permits, all of the hazardous material permits, fire and security alarm fees, oops, we moved those, and the SWIP fees and underground storage tank fees. So many of those fees had increases, and so that's why you see between those two line items, there's actually a little bit of a gain. Under 74060, small supplies, this is a mouthful, the name of this one. Supply small tools and equipment. This also has a 500 increase because of escalating costs to some of the small equipment that's being used by this team. And these are things like hand power tools, paint sprayers, small generators, and things like that. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this budget.
Adrian?
Several of us are somewhat confused about, okay, so there's this facilities budget, and then we've moved other stuff over into the cap budget. What's moved?
So none of these items that are in this budget, which are traditionally in this budget, are being moved over to the capital. These are items to maintain ongoing all of our amenities and facilities. What was moved over was what we used to call trust facility property maintenance, and those were a little bit larger type projects. So staining of the event center wood, or the table tennis wood, painting of a larger scale, not just a hallway, but larger scale. Furniture type replacement, open space maintenance, where we have to replace a piece of equipment that broke that we didn't anticipate that may be capital, like a water heater, for example. So that's what moved over, about $750,000. None of these items that are traditional. This is just routine, ongoing maintenance and upkeep.
So most of the work that would be done under the part that moved would probably be done by a contractor.
Correct.
Rather than an employee.
Mostly coordinated by some of our staff, but by a contractor. We would hire a plumber to replace the water heater, for example, or hire a contractor to do the staining, painting. Yes.
A follow-up on that, though, Jeff. So if there are things that the policy committee determines are not capital that have theoretically been moved over to capital for budget purposes, they're not in the operating budget to be moved back.
No, we don't have them programmed in here to move back into here. So we would have to make some adjustment before budget is finalized, if there's going to be some items in that list that the board wants to come back to this budget.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, this is just a small one. So when I'm looking at the 2025 coupon budget, I'm looking for the line of whatever that was that we moved from the operating to the capital, but I don't see that.
So it's not in this budget, and it never has been in facility maintenance budget. It was in its own tab at the front of the binder. It used to be, I believe, tab 6. And so since it's not included in this budget this year, because it was moved, it's not reflected.
Okay, I understand that. Would it have been reflected in the 2025 coupon?
Yes, it was. If you go under tab 2,
it's actually a line in the unallocated.
Oh, it was in the unallocated?
Correct.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay.
it used to be there. Any other questions on trust maintenance? Okay, I think we're on to vehicle maintenance.
So for vehicle maintenance, we have a team of 2 that takes care of maintenance of all of our vehicles, construction equipment, and small tools for RWC and RPM operations. There's about 90 vehicles, not counting the golf equipment. And the repairs that they conduct on site range from routine service to brake jobs and rebuilding transmissions. They're a really talented in-house resource. And again, the team is comprised of 2 staff. We have an auto mechanic foreman and an auto mechanic. As far as budget changes, we are seeing some increases to 74031, other licenses. And the increase requested is 500. And similar to facilities maintenance, this increase is due to compliance and inspection fees that have increased for hazardous materials handling and storage, and fuel storage and other regulatory agencies that are covered in that line item. Under 74070, equipment repair and maintenance, this line item has kind of varied year to year, but based on the escalating cost of supplies, we are asking for a $5,000 increase. We believe that'll cover it for this year. In 74075, automotive supplies, the $5,000 increase request is based on historical expenditures and the trend that we see in the cost of these types of supplies increasing in cost. And for 76001, waste disposal, there's a $1,500 increase based on the projected expenditure. And those for removal and recycling of waste oil, filters, antifreeze, and other hazardous solids. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right. So you said that there are nine vehicles?
Excuse me?
How many vehicles?
Oh, vehicles? There are 90 operational vehicles, not counting the equipment that's taken care of in Gulf.
So in terms of the mechanics and the foremen, are they fully utilized in terms of repairing these vehicles all the time?
I'm having a hard time hearing things because of the echo on the mics. I'm sorry.
What I'm trying to figure out is in terms of the personnel for the repairs, are these persons fully utilized in terms of what they're doing on a daily basis?
They are definitely busy, especially with the landscape equipment and the golf equipment on a seasonal basis. They also maintain the inspections on the buses and the rolling stock and the equipment as well. So they are extremely busy.
They're extremely busy. I couldn't understand the question, but yeah, they're nonstop. It's full service in-house and they're nonstop.
And Adrian?
Yeah, I was a little struck by the other licenses and fees being 18,000. Where does most of that fee go? Is it because we have our own gas tank or something of that sort?
So which line item? 74060?
74031.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong department.
So a lot of this has to do with inspections and our handling of hazardous waste, but we also have licensing that we have to do even with the fuel pumps. They come out on a very regular basis to inspect that, plus our service to make sure it is in compliance, along with our oil storage and waste, tire waste. So, I mean, there's just a lot of regulatory stuff that goes into that.
We also have a software that manages the fleet maintenance and keeps track of that, and that subscription is paid for in that line item.
Are there any other questions for vehicle maintenance?
Okay, keeping with the maintenance theme, we're moving on to landscape maintenance.
Good afternoon, Board and Finance Committee. I'm here to discuss landscape maintenance that's for the RWC land. So our responsibilities are maintaining our street mediums, our parks and clubhouses, and the turf areas are maintained through a third-party vendor, Terra. But we have little to no change in the program this year. So we still have 1 landscape foreman, 1 irrigation technician, and 5 landscape technicians for a total of 7 employees. When we look at the actual budget page, we have our increase in wages, the 2.1%. We have an increase in total employee benefits of 4.7%. That difference there has a lot to do with union benefits. We have a slight increase in laundry and uniforms from our contractor, Cintas. We have a $2,500 increase in landscape materials, which include things like fertilizer, the annual color that we install, annual flowers, that type of thing. So a minor increase there. There is a $2,500 error in the turf and maintenance supplies that should not be there. So really total landscape maintenance has an increase of $2,500, which is about 1%. So very, very similar budget as to last year. Are there any questions on this budget? Okay. Seeing none.
Seeing none, I guess we can move on to custodial.
Thank you very much.
Super. So I think it's fairly recent, we had a deep dive on custodial services. So I think everyone knows, in addition to all the light maintenance and custodial duties of our clubhouses, that they are the setup teams for all of our facility rentals. We do have a team of 16 FTEs, and this includes their supervisor, Avi Singh, and then there are 15 custodians. And thank you to the board for approving the additional one last year. As we go through the budget, you'll kind of see the impact to adding that one person. And I want to point out overtime wages. So it's 70050 overtime wages. So last year, we were projecting that if we had the other staff person, that we would be able to reduce our overtime from 57 to 30,000. And it was a little bit of a, you're trying to guess and see what the pattern of activity would be. This year, we're projecting it'll be 39,000, so we want to readjust that to 39. And just, we're always striving not to overuse it, but given like leaves and coverage during peak times, it seems like 39,000 maybe we were norming. So that is why we're requesting an increase in overtime this year. In 72067, supplies shows a $20,000 decrease, and this is one of those situations where we reassigned funds from that line item to 74060 supplies, small tools and equipment. In 74029, other professional services, there's a $5,000 increase requested based on a scheduled increase in the contract we have with janitorial services for deep cleaning of the Tice Creek locker rooms. And as just mentioned in 74060, supplies, small tools and equipment is funded by reassigning $20,000 from 72067. So that's not an increase, it's just a reassignment of funding. I'm happy to answer questions.
And something looks a little odd in salaries. So we're projecting $1,061,000 for 2025, and for that to go down to $987,000.
I can
with no
answer
change.
Yeah, Amanda can answer that there.
So when we added both the custodial position and the AV position last year, I wasn't under the understanding that the AV position was going to be in the recreation department. So it was budgeted into this department last year. So year over year, last year's budget was overstated in this department and understated in recreation.
But I'm not even comparing it to the budget, I'm comparing to actual. Actual 2025, $1,061,000, going down to $966,000. And hand in hand with that, the union health and welfare and pension going up almost 20%. So something just looks a little funky there.
So while we're investigating that, are there questions on the?
I have a question for Ann.
Adrian, and then.
Sure.
I see we're spending roughly 100-something odd thousand on professional services, which you said was cleaning the Tice Creek.
Tice Creek, locker rooms. Mhm.
Yeah. Is that a reasonable amount? I mean, would it be better off having our own people do that, hiring people to do that? I mean, what's the plus and minus there?
The plus is that we're guaranteed to have that service, so it's immune to leave time, like vacations, leaves, and for two people to come in and do that 5 nights a week. I mean, Jeff could give you a guess, or Amanda, of the cost of like adding a staff person in, but you won't get that type of efficiency of hours.
The challenge too is if we use our own staff and add staff, you're having to add full-time positions based on our union agreement. So you can't have just a cleaning service that has 4 people come in for 2 hours and knock it out. And we have to do it once we close at 9 o'clock. So it's just efficiencies of use of.
Okay, fair enough.
Do you feel like you have an adequate number of custodians now?
I think that we've done a lot of good work in the last year of making sure that we're, focusing and reassigning the custodial route to handle some of the trouble areas. I know one of the big problem areas we had, Mark can speak to this, is with the tea houses. And so what we did is we were adding people. We have people that they literally focus on the restroom cleaning, which, while it sounds like a given, there were things that weren't quite precisely managed. And so when we were able to restructure, reorganize the reservations, it allowed us to then restructure, reorganize the other duties of the cleaning and the maintaining. And so I think we are in a really good balance right now. For the service level, we're in a really good balance.
So you don't think adding a custodian would help at all with the room reservation limitations?
It wouldn't help with room reservations. It would help with cleaning. Yeah.
Just real quick.
Susan and then Roy.
Just real quick. I understand the question from Janet regarding the custodians. I was going to wait until tomorrow when we talked about additions to just talk about what we might need to be able to make more rooms available for our residents. So I don't need to be discussing that today. I thought that would probably be a topic for tomorrow. Is that appropriate?
We can discuss that tomorrow under new staffing as well, if you'd like.
Well, it's up to you, or Ann, because the question regarding custodians, I think, is a good one, Janet. I'm interested in understanding what we might need to add, knowing that this would be a cost that would make more rooms available to our residents. We know that a lot of our clubs are getting historical bookings, getting new bookings when things come up. That can be very challenging. And we don't have to discuss it today, but it's a question I have about what would we need to add to what we're considering if we wanted to make more of those rooms available.
Thank you for the heads up for tomorrow.
My question is very simple. Line item, account item 72067 supplies. And next year will be $20,000 less than this year. My question is very simple. Are we talking about same level of services, or are we talking about maybe cut some kind of corners?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but just so you know, funds were moved to another line item. It wasn't a decrease. So there's not a service level change.
The supplies cut off $20,000. Means some kind of material will be cut short. Or either you find a better, cheaper material, or just cut down the quantities.
So if you look under supplies, small tools, equipment, we added 20,000 to that line item, which previously was under the supplies budget. So total is 130,000, same as current year, same level of service. We just reassigned 20,000 of it to small tools to better reflect how we utilize those resources.
Any other questions on that? Okay, moving on.
Okay, we are on to communications, Rossmore News, and the website.
Okay, so we're going to start with the newspaper and the websites. We are responsible for putting out the weekly newspaper, which comes to everybody's home on Wednesday. The newspaper team consists of a content team, which deals with our articles, letters, photos, a production team, which designs all of our ads, and that processes copy and designs the pages. Our sales team, we have 3. One is devoted to classifieds and legals. The 2 others do the display, bus ads, and the digital ads. And then our circulation team, I have a part-time circulation supervisor who oversees 15 news carriers. We also publish 3 advertorial sections every year, as well as the new All Around Rossmore Residents Guide. This past year, we've kind of added on, and now we do marketing as well out of our department, mostly trying to implement the marketing plan that came from the task force. And we do have one resident, a website content manager, who oversees Rossmore.com, myrossmore.com, rossmorenews.com, and helps with the HR with the internal employee website. So to break it down, the newspaper, the expenses and revenue, that accounts for $8.15 on the coupon. So that's approximately $2 per paper. On the outside, you would pay $2.50 to $3, so we are below market value on that. The websites account for the other $4. In terms of ad revenue, it offsets about 49% of the operating costs for the overall department and 58% of the newspaper cost. We'll start with revenue for the Rossmore News. We increased our display ad rates in June this year, which is helping us to offset a loss in ads. We are seeing, because of the economy, some of our ad sales going down, but fortunately we don't anticipate losing money because that ad rate increase kind of balanced that out. For 2026, we are going to increase our classified ads and legals up to $7,500. We have really owned this category. The way it works with legal notices, they have to go in a print newspaper. So as print newspapers close down, we're kind of vultures. We go in and we suck up that market. And so we're going to continue to maximize that for as long as we can. Bus ads are going to go down by 2,000. That's because one bus is coming out of circulation. So that will cost us 5,600. We have been doing fairly good with the other buses, so I think just a $2,000 drop here will be fine. On the expenses side, for salary and wages, you will see $6,400 increased. We are taking our news carriers from $19 an hour to $20 an hour. They have not had a salary increase since 2022. And unfortunately, with the fast food restaurants offering $20 an hour, I have to at least match those guys to keep our carriers. For subscriptions and books, this is going down $7,725. That's mostly because we moved some of our subscriptions into the IT budget, but we do have to maintain for our ad management and our production software. We're keeping that in the news budget. Travel and meal allowance, that's going to go up $1,000. That's because of the increase in the mileage rate. We do pay mileage for our news carriers when they deliver. Newspaper printing, that's gone up, but we're looking at just an increase of $7,000. We're very lucky to be with a family printer that holds their costs down as much as possible, but they did get hit with the tariffs where the paper's concerned, so the prices did go up this year. Other professional services, this will be a decrease of $7,000. Most of that is coming because we are going to move away from a customized My Rossmore, so we will need less in terms of maintaining that website. I'm not bringing that down as far as I could because I do want to take about $3,000 and increase the security that we'll have on Rossmore.com. We're seeing a lot more cyber hacking, so we need a slightly higher security level for that. And then business promotion, we did not use the full amount this year, and that's largely because most of what's going to happen with the name change on the websites is coming first quarter of next year. So I am going to keep that at $25,000 because next year is where we're going to need to do the big push. Before we go on to Rossmore TV, are there any questions about Rossmore News?
Yeah, and on the newspaper advertising, you're forecasting for 2025 $843,000, but you're going down $8,000, even though you said rates were going up. So you're keeping the budget from budget to budget is flat, but from actual to budget for next year is actually a decrease. Why is that?
Again, we are looking at some of our advertisers starting to back off this year because of the economy. Many of them have talked about the fact that they were frozen for this year, but they're anticipating that their ad budget will go back to normal in January, so they'll resume their advertising.
So if they're going to resume their advertising, wouldn't that mean it'd be back to at least what 2024 was, or the 835? I mean, 845?
Yes. So we still have to, again, we do have to account for the fact that we've looked at a 15% drop this year. So while I anticipate getting some of that back, I can't anticipate that all of that's going to come back for next year. I have to really kind of do based on where I am right now, and I have to plan as if we're going to be the 15% down. It doesn't mean we don't have plans to try to bring that back around. I never like to go into something saying, especially with the economy being where it is right now, trying to estimate that we can go higher than where we are.
So I'm going to add to Susan's agenda. A lot of feedback here. So we want to spend $125,000 to redesign Rossmore.com, and I noticed a request to add a personnel at $100,000 for content creator. So I'm wondering if there's any upside in revenue that might offset those two expenditures, and you don't need to answer that right now. Maybe that's a discussion for tomorrow.
We can discuss it tomorrow. The one thing that I've tried to be careful with, I have not brought up digital revenue this year on purpose. We did discuss at a planning committee meeting, Adrian brought up the fact that Rossmore.com is likely going to generate a lot more leads in terms of home sales than we've seen in the past. I could certainly come in here, I could slap an arbitrary number on it, but if I do that, then that's going to hamstring planning and the board in terms of what we do, because you'll kind of have to fall in line with whatever plan I put out there, rather than allowing you guys to have more input in that. Now, if you want to put an arbitrary number on that and say we will generate to cancel out the $100,000 needed for social media, we can do that. But again, whatever we put in place then is going to have to add up for quarters 2, 3, and 4 to hit that $100,000. If we come up with a plan that we think could over time generate more, but it would require putting in, say, 4 to 6 months of work, you've hurt us at the outset, because again, I've got to hit a number that now I would need to do faster than what the planning would allow for. So it's really up to you guys. If you want more say in it, I can't really put an arbitrary number into the budget, but if you want us to just come up with a tentative plan, we can do that. And I can bring it to you tomorrow.
We look forward to tomorrow.
So this might be my ignorance, but as far as the production cost of the Rossmore News is concerned, for the manners, is it automatic for them to get a hard copy rather than electing to get a digital copy through email?
Yes, everybody pays for a hard copy, so we deliver to all of the homes unless they request a stop. We do get some folks who request stops just for vacation. There are some who request permanent stops. Interestingly enough, we were at 332 for permanent stops a year ago. We're at 258 now. So either the new folks coming in want print, or some of them, I've had two, one husband, one wife call and say, my spouse shouldn't have stopped my paper, and we had to restart it.
Are you talking about stops in terms of vacation or just permanent stops?
Some of them do permanent stops. Some of them decide they just want to read the e-edition. It's the same price regardless. What you see online, that e-edition, is the print newspaper. It's just in an electronic format. So you save nothing on the operating expenses other than the physical delivery of the paper to the home. But the reality is the news carriers have to go into every single entry. Unless you had an entire entry that decided to be a permanent stop, the news carrier is still walking the ground, so it's still the same amount of money. The other thing too, because I get this question all the time, so this is more for the audience, no, the print paper is not going away. We are going to literally ride that train to the end of the line. The reason is we've gotten ourselves to $1 million budget for advertising by maximizing print. So you get every last cent that you can out of print so that we can build up the digital side for the day when there is no print paper.
So when is that day going to happen? I mean, we knew that the water was going to run out of the creek there about 3 years before it happened. So do we
March
have an idea?
2031.
So let's put it this way, Ted. If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't work here. I'd be going touring the country telling all the newspapers how to prepare for that day. No, I think it's interesting because when I started this job 6.5 years ago, where we were, the trajectory was telling us that we were probably, by the time we got to 2028, that was going to be it. And then interesting things happen, right? When COVID hit, we actually found a lot more people starting to go back to not your daily, not your big newspapers, but your community newspapers. So we're seeing a lot of more niche community weekly newspapers coming back. But the big ones are still going out of business. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has decided to stop in January of next year. So you are seeing them start to taper down. Here's the interesting thing. Partly this was luck, partly this was because we researched the heck out of the printing presses. We went with a press out of Tracy that diversified their portfolio. I'm big on diversifying. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket. And they haven't. So they're doing Parks and Rec magazines that come out. They're doing the penny flyers that you see in the mail. They're even doing books. This press has managed to branch out into a bunch of different areas so that they are not just a newspaper printer. That means that they're going to probably be one of the last ones to go out of business. It also helps that half their staff are the next generation of family members, so when mom and dad retire, the next group comes up. So we're in very good position with our printing press. If I had to put an estimate on it right now, probably another 10 years. And like I said, we will ride this out and maximize our print revenue for as long as we can.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, let's continue.
Okay, Rossmore Television. So this department produces the TV programming that you see on Comcast Channel 1083, as well as RossmoreTV.com. We have both live streaming and video on demand online and available through the Cablecast app. We also maintain the Rossmore YouTube page where you can find links to all of the RWC meetings. In addition to the meetings, the TV station, they do programs for the town halls and events, entertainment, lectures, interviews, fitness programs, and of course, if you haven't played it, you should. Live bingo every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. It's a very popular program. The fact that we are a community access channel, what that means is that we are unable to sell commercials. We can't be like your regular TV channel where you sell commercials to help offset the programming costs. But in exchange for that, we also don't have to pay the almost $1 million broadcasting fee that we would have to pay to be on TV. So I definitely think we're on the better end of that one by not having to pay the broadcast fee. The staff is about 3.5. We have a full-time station manager and a full-time studio supervisor. We have a part-time program assistant who does a lot of work with bingo, a lot of work with the Post-it notes for our clubs and organizations. And then the remainder are our part-time on-contract videographers, and they almost add up to one full-time position. They share those hours. With the budget, we are adding $200 in overtime. That's because a lot of these RWC meetings have been going long this year, so we have to account for the overtime for that. Our subscriptions and books will go up $250. That's because the subscription rate has gone up for the editing programs that we use. Other professional services, this will be a $500 increase, which will be used to pay for an extended warranty. The new broadcast system we bought 3 years ago had a warranty built in. Now that goes away, so we need the extended. And for the record, we just had something break. That warranty is so worth the money, because to fix what we just had broken would have been about $4,500, so $500 is a steal. And then the last part is a $1,000 increase for administrative supplies. This is because all of the equipment you need for the TV station has gotten hit by inflation, so that number needs to go up. Are there any questions for TV?
I'm just curious to know, do we have statistics on the number of people that watch the TV shows?
No, so that's the sad part of also being a community access channel. We have no Nielsen rating data at all. I can track who's looking at the YouTube videos, and surprisingly, those numbers are going up. There's more interest in people watching our meetings, I guess. And our town halls, our Firewise town hall, is one of the best videos we've had yet. We just topped out over 1,000 people watching that. So unfortunately, there isn't really a good way to see who's watching, but the one thing that we have done, we've done things like we've audited bingo to see how many people are playing bingo, and we have over half of the community has a bingo card, so that's a pretty good number there. We do things like, we'll sometimes move programs around. We have learned our lesson. We do not move Kathy's fitness program at 9 o'clock. There's twice this year that our broadcast station was down at 9 o'clock and the phones rang off the hook, and we're like, we're working on it, I promise. So some of this is more word of mouth in terms of trying to figure out. George and I have talked about possibly doing a survey to get a better gauge for what folks might want to watch on TV, so that likely will come next year.
And I keep reading about YouTube millionaires, and as popular as our meetings videos are on YouTube, are we generating any dollars from YouTube?
No, so our views are way too low to be able to monetize, so we don't put any of our own ads on YouTube. The other thing is we are always trying to be very careful, because since those programs are also going onto TV, we're careful not to try to generate revenue off that. That could jeopardize our broadcasting license. We could, because we don't put things like the planning committee meeting and the finance meetings, we could try to put ads in front of those, but those numbers aren't high enough to do that. Not even close. If we wanted to make money, we would need to be in the 100,000 page view range, and we got some work to do to get there.
We just need a good controversy. Any other questions on? Amanda, do you have the info circling back to the custodial headcount or salaries and wages, or come back tomorrow on that?
I'm going to have to dive deeper into it.
Okay, we'll come back. That leaves us with 800 department, I believe.
Okay, this is the unallocated department. Starting with revenue, this is interest income from bank balances, so we are anticipating a little bit of a drop there as interest rates decreasing. Miscellaneous income is various things throughout the year. It includes things like locker rental, if we have a shred day, things like that. Then you see the 4% increase for Comcast, which will take down accordingly. And then the next line item is basically the offset for the coupon that gets charged. In this line, you also see the revenue coming from facilities usage fees. So we did account for the projected increase in the rate of that. And I know it has a new name, and we'll get that changed in next year's budget. And then we have Creekside revenue, which is projected to increase according to the agreement that we have with them. RV space lease, we kept consistent just because there's a limited number of space, and it's pretty full up there. Salaries and wages, this is the merit market pool that we spoke about. This, I'm sorry.
I was just going to comment, the forecast for salary and wages of 52, that just came through as the remaining budget from August through December. That is 0, so that will go away on the forecast. It doesn't affect the budget, but if you're looking at the salary and wages line for the forecast of 25, obviously nothing's ever spent against that because it's allocated across the actual people, right? So that was just a system where it pulled in the remaining 5 months of budget. Just FYI, so the next version, that'll be zeroed out.
The next is the expense line for equipment repair maintenance. This is our copier machines that are throughout all of the departments. So that shows a slight increase. This is the trust facility maintenance line, 72099. That's the line item that we're speaking about moving to the capital budget. Let's see what else we have. We're showing a decrease in other professional services. This last year we budgeted for the internal audit, and we've taken that up to be considered again this year and tomorrow's meeting. Everything else is staying fairly flat. We have regulatory licenses and fees, postage and delivery, admin supplies all staying the same. So these administrative supplies are things that are used across all departments, things like check stock, paper, since we still use quite a bit of paper. And then bank charges, all types, is again regarding credit card fees, and this is just for the small miscellaneous income type items that we have. Todd, did you want to talk about the insurance piece of this?
So obviously the insurance is a huge topic. So these are basically currently the rates that Jeff and I have been using that are the last rates from Gallagher. And so you can see, I need to look into the insurance crime rate. I think that should be 15, not 16.5. I'll verify that for tomorrow. But those are basically straight off our last Gallagher conversation last week of 20% and 15%. You'll see the property insurance we have left flat. That is due to us managing the 17-month in next year. So even though there is a decrease in property, we're maintaining the level so we can basically shift into a 17-month premium, right? Just same kind of advice we're obviously working on through all the mutuals. And so the secondary analysis to this on insurance, as everyone knows, is to actually map out the cash flow for the 5-month extension plus the additional 12-month premium that would be due in June. I don't know if you want to say anything else on that, Jeff, but that's basically why we're leaving that flat. And then, of course, from the board motion, we remove the earthquake insurance.
So these are based as well on the projections from Gallagher based on the information they have at the current time. They are currently marketing both the extension and the renewal to get a sense of what we'd look at the renewal, anticipating about a 10% to 15% rate reduction, and then potentially some additional rate cut at June. So we're still refining some of that work with Gallagher.
Dwight?
So, I don't know why there's such feedback here. So the $2 million in insurance expense, is that 17 months worth of insurance, or is that 12 months?
That would be the 17.
So I'm troubled by increasing.
Let's just back up a little bit. So there's two things happening here. So the coupon generating the dollars in, right? We need to, so we have savings from this year that we are currently running, and if we maintain that same rate in the budget for next year, we'll generate more surplus. That'll allow us, even though we have the cash, to be able to get into a 17-month premium payment from a cash flow. Adrian's shaking his head. Go ahead, Adrian.
So I guess the issue I have is we have a short-term cash flow need for that additional 5 months, and we're jacking up the coupon to borrow from residents in order for a short-term cash need. Don't we have enough cash to cover that 5 months? Because as I recall, we were under budget. I mean, we over budgeted for premiums in 2025, not knowing where property would come in. So we're not passing along the savings in the coupon to be actual expense.
But those actual decreases that Gallagher are giving us are not official yet either. So as we look to actually shop and buying the 5-month and the next 12-month, versus the alternative would be to reduce our property insurance based on 5%, right?
Well, I mean, the problem is we're an accrual-based accounting system. And, we're an accrual-based accounting system. And so if we're spending, to make the math easier, let's say we're spending $1.7 million over 17 months. That means we're spending $1 million over 12, and that's what our P&L has to reflect. What we'd end up seeing on the balance sheet would be prepaid expense going up as we do this under this approach. So, I mean, we're mixing up cash flow and P&L. And that's,
okay, so
that's
Adrian,
inappropriate.
So, Adrian, we have the benefit of sitting on cash, but if you were to take that same argument to the mutual, what would your answer be? Would you suggest that they're 12-month in arrear collecting the insurance? So you'd say that because we're accrual-based, they should spend all their surplus?
Well, I mean, if you're an accrual-based,
you still have to have the cash, though.
There's no question about that. There's cash and there's P&L, and you can play games with both of them. But the point being, on ours, I mean, well, I'm sitting here looking, not as a mutual, and I know we have the cash, and why we're prepaying expense out of today's coupon just does not make sense to me at all. I'm sorry.
So this is probably an item that we totally hear what you're suggesting here, and we also have some work to do with Gallagher. Before we come back with the presentation to finance, we'll refine what the presentation looks like and the justifications and so forth, understanding what your interest is here that you're describing.
But that would be before the budget is approved?
Yes, so we'll have that when we come into the finance committee meeting and then into the board for approval.
Yeah, it would be really good to see like a nice clean schedule and the cash flows and the income statement impacts of that.
Yeah, let's just frame the dollars on that. So if $2 million is the 17-month premium, the 5 months is $500,000. Yeah. And so we're boosting up the coupon. So we'll address that later, I know.
Again, I think we understand what your interest and what your commentary is there. We'll take that and refine and come back to you.
Roy?
I have a question about the line item, the account 75045. The earthquake insurance. Seems to me in 2026, we are not going to have earthquake insurance for all the amenities. Am I correct or wrong?
So the board voted at your last meeting to not renew earthquake insurance, so that has been removed.
Is there any justification for it?
The policy was a $5 million policy at a cost of about $300,000 when in the trust estate fund or the capital fund, you've been building up a reserve of up to $4 million now. So if you continue to build that, you basically have your $5 million in coverage. In addition, there is potential for the alternative risk transfer if we needed cash for an emergency as well.
Can we possibly have a GAPE program, like insure half of it, and then a year or two, when we accumulate more than $5 million, then we stop it?
I didn't catch that, I'm sorry.
Right now it's totally stopped, but we have $4 million. We need probably $5 million in reserve. So maybe give a year or two to, a small amount of earthquake insurance until we accumulate to $5 million, then we cancel it.
Wasn't it already voted on to stop this?
Yeah, the board voted at your last meeting to.
Yeah. Cassia?
So I just wanted everybody to understand that this $1,068,000 that's in here for property insurance is 12 months. It's actually the expense that is budgeted. It is not the cash flow that's budgeted.
Well, that's not what we were told.
I know, and that's why I'm clarifying it, and I just confirmed it with Todd, that this million is 12 months worth of expense, which is different than the 17 months of cash that is needed. I know it's not what you were told, that's why I'm bringing it up
Okay,
again.
so you're saying now that all this insurance, the $2,031,000 is for 12 months, not 17?
Again, let us
Confirm.
refine this, work with Gallagher on what their expectations are. We will have this for your consideration at Finance.
Adrian?
We are moving the $750,000 that was in the 2025 budget for equipment repairs maintenance into the capital, into trust facility maintenance, into the capital budget. However, we were forecasting 802 for this year. Is the 750 adequate?
So we are moving, so the reason why it shows 750 is there was a reserve fund for the trust facility property maintenance. And so the coupon amount was 750, but the budget amount was 802. And we've managed the gap with that reserve fund. That fund will be moved over to the capital as well. So in the capital budget, our estimate kind of moving forward, showing an escalation starts at 850, and then we will escalate that. But we haven't finished that budget yet.
Dan?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Can the Finance Committee see a capital budget with this at the next Finance Committee meeting with this in it and expenditures so we can see? Because my understanding is the board approved the moving of it but did not approve any change in the MTF. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so what we'll be doing is on Thursday, going through it with the Planning Committee, we'll use the kind of the cash flow model so we can drop in a number of projects that are in the facilities master plan, as well as this line item budget, to see what that does to the ending balance and what adjustments need to be made in terms of the MTF.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that at the Finance Committee too at the end of the month, please.
And we will be looking for a recommendation out of finance.
Great, thank you.
Dwight?
I have a small item. I get very excited about revenue. And Jeff, I know a couple years ago you started a parking revenue at 1220 Rossmore Parkway. Is that revenue reflected here?
That probably would be in your miscellaneous revenue.
That's correct.
It's, I think about $2,200 a month that was generating.
I still get excited about it.
That's why we're here.
Susan?
Thanks. I know that this is under consideration right now, but is there any reason to think that the Creekside revenue, given potential changing conditions, might be different, or we're just standing with that estimated figure?
I think we don't have enough information at this point. That should come to light here in the coming month or months when we do have a recommendation for renewal or a new agreement, but we don't have that yet.
Thank you.
Nancy?
There's no other questions. Janet said she was freaking out about bank charges earlier, and having been a banker for most of my life, a credit card transaction costs significantly more than a debit card transaction. So I don't know if a lot of people maybe don't differentiate between the two, because the credit card transaction is associated with additional credit risk, but we could potentially encourage people to use debit cards. I don't know if it's worth the trouble, but that would save a significant amount in bank fees.
Okay, is there any other questions? I think that's...
Okay, so for our next steps, we will adjourn then until tomorrow, where we will pick up with proposals for new staffing. We'll also address a lot of the follow-up items from today in terms of some increased revenue opportunities, discussion on the custodial, and then we will also have some follow-up items coming up for the Finance Committee based on the discussions here. So I don't think there's anything further for today's actions, and we would resume again tomorrow with the beginning of the vote.
Okay, so I am recessing this till Wednesday, September 11th at 9 a.m., same room.
September 10th.
Oh, what did I say?
You said September 11th.
Oh, it's written 11th on my sheet. September 10th at 9 a.m. at 11. 9 a.m. in the morning, same place.
Is she visiting?